That is right, Andrew. It is Friday. Yes, we made it through another week. Another week of trudge and toil. Not really. Not really. Today's been this week actually I have to say it's been a great week. Well, today's a little sluggish. Been studying, keeping up with the technology out there, especially in telecom, so it's been kind of hectic. And you guys that know me know I do not like to take tests, so it was one of those days. But I did fairly well. Went in there, knocked it out this morning. Out of the park. Did a lot better than I expected. I am officially certified. Certifiable, some would say. But, oh my Lord. What a show do we have in store for you. We are going to have Mr. Scott V, I'm just going to call him Mr. V, is going to be joining us. He is a government insider, works as an investigator with various law enforcement agencies and different alphabet groups. He's going to be coming in and sharing his experience with us, his abduction contactee experience. It's going to be a good one. He's never told the story before. So this is all new. This is all new to me and to you as well. So I look forward to that. So he'll be joining us, like I said, in a few minutes. Until then, I do want to talk about the noise. The noise. Yes, it is noise. It is election season. So yes, it definitely qualifies as noise. You know, I saw something that was really disturbing. I know one candidate has a history of promoting violence at his campaign rallies. I think that was just more puffery, just being a jerk. But another candidate, I will have to say, has a history of violence at their rallies. I don't know if you guys saw this. And, you know, I don't care who the candidates were or weren't. There was a lady in Hollywood who apparently was sitting or trying to protect Donald Trump's Hollywood star when she was accosted by a group of men. Thugs. That's right. Now, I don't know what kind of society you want to live in, but that is definitely not a society that I want to live in. And I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. I just have to say, men, and this is out there for you men out there. When you see a lady, I don't care if she's black, white, Hispanic, Chinese, I don't care what race she is. But when you see a lady being attacked by a group of men, you better put down the damn camera for YouTube or Hip Hop World Star or wherever you're going to do that. And you need to come to her defense. You know, that's just uncalled for. Uncalled for 100%. Oh, we're getting a little bleed through from one of the systems here. Just bear with me for a second. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I can hear it. Oh, yeah, it's calling me on my phone. You know, I gotta love this technology. And that's Scott. So let me go ahead and answer this call from him. He is joining in and we will go from there here in a little bit. But I just wanted to say that as Scott is calling into the system, getting ready for the show tonight. I just said, that it's one of these things. I don't care what political fence you are on. I don't care what your beliefs are. I don't care who you're going to vote for. But when you see a female being accosted, attacked, period, you can disagree with her beliefs or not, but when you see her being attacked by males, put the damn phone down and be a gentleman. That's all I've got to say. And that message crosses all party lines as far as I'm concerned. It is unacceptable. It is not a society that I want to live in. Like I said, you can agree, disagree, whatever. When you see a female being attacked, that is when you need to become a gentleman and you need to step up and protect her, especially when she's being attacked by males. That is the right thing to do. When I saw that video today, I was sickened by it because it just goes to show you what we have become. Now, I can tell you in my neighborhood, I know it's certain segments of the country that are like that. I can tell you that don't float here. I know that firsthand. We take care of our own here in our neighborhood. But enough of that. So going back to the show, I just want to say thank you for joining us tonight. If you're watching us on Facebook, make sure that you share with your friends. There's a very special message down there below. If you get disconnected, they've been doing pretty good lately until about the third, fourth hour. I just don't think that their system can handle the bandwidth. I can't believe I'm saying that about Facebook. But if you do get disconnected, there's no way that I can reconnect. So you're going to have to join us on Facebook. Or on YouTube. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at the MN Ocean. That's on Twitter at the MN Ocean. And of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, if you have not hit that subscribe button, shame on you. Shame on you. You should do that. It helps us out tremendously. I'd like to hit the 300 subscription mark by the end of the month. That would be awesome. There's another thing, too, that we really need. We were contacted or informed that we meet all of the requirements to be on iHeartRadio. For those that don't know, iHeartRadio is reserved for radio stations. There are not that many podcasts that are allowed unaffiliated podcasts, and we're unaffiliated at this time. Now, we do offer our feed for AM mom and pops, but I have not made an affiliate radio station. That will come at the first of the year when we announce that. For those that don't know, in order to broadcast on terrestrial radio, you have to have an affiliate. You have to have like a home radio station that you broadcast under. And we don't have that, but we're going to have one. But for us to be even considered for iHeartRadio is incredible. And we appreciate that from all of those people at Spreaker, because I know that they're been helping us out tremendously with that. But there is a requirement. We need to have, in order for our application to even be processed, they can't process the application until we have 100 followers. I would like to make that 500 followers. There's no reason why we don't have 500 followers on Spreaker. It is a larger, believe it or not, it is a larger format than YouTube. So we have 300 YouTube followers. We should at least have 300 Spreaker followers. So get out there and do that. If you signed up for Spreaker, if you're listening to us on Spreaker and you haven't hit that follow button, please do so. That will help us out tremendously. And we would appreciate it very much. Now, what a show last night. What did you guys think about Stanton Friedman? We have one teed up for you tonight, though. Now, let me tell you, I'm going to let Scott, I'm just going to call him Scott V, and he can decide if he wants to give his full name out or not. But we're going to be bringing on Scott here in a few minutes, and I'm just going to let him tell his story. I'm going to become a listener, and I'm going to sit back and enjoy it, as I would recommend you do. Now, this is a story. Scott has not told this story publicly ever. Now, he's told it amongst friends and family, and that's how we found out about him. But he has not gone on the air. So you've never heard this story from Scott. And I think what's more impressive, and we're going to start out with his background. I want him to start out with his background, what he did and what he didn't do. You know, very credible witness to this. So I think it's important. And without further haste, let's bring our guest on for the night is Mr. Scott V. Hey, Scott, sorry to keep you waiting for so long, but we had to take care of a little business there at the beginning. So welcome to the show. Scott, are you there? Are you talking to me on mute? Yeah, I noticed that we're having some audio qualities. Let me hang up, and then we will try again. Skype, gotta love it. You know, I don't doubt one bit that they don't want us to talk. Hey, Scott, are you there?
On this one. Sit.
I can't hear you, but...
You can't hear me, Scott?
Okay, I can hear you better now.
Okay. How about now? You can hear me now. Are we okay? Do we need to switch over to a landline?
No, we're fine now.
Okay. So you are on the air, my friend. So once again, Scott V. Now, Scott, I know that we were having some audio difficulties there at the beginning, so you probably didn't hear me. What I want to do is so you can, I'm just going to call you Scott V or Mr. V. I'm not going to go, you can decide to give your full name out or not over the air, because I know that you have in the past worked with different agencies and are currently working with different agencies. So it is completely up to you if you want to disclose your first name to our audience, to our listeners. I'm just going to refer to you as Mr. V or Scott. But I think it's important. Let's first start out, because your story is fascinating, especially with your background. So let's start out with your background, and then we'll get into why you are on the show tonight.
Okay. Background. I was born and brought up in 1949. I was born and brought up in a small village in the middle of the Adirondacks. Now, this, believe it or not, has a lot to do with everything, because as I was finally allowed to remember after September 15th of 2014, when, along with two other police officers and my wife, we witnessed the strangest, most beautiful night sky at 3 o'clock in the morning that you can imagine. Now, from that point on, a large rectangular ship appeared. I'll give you the whole basis behind this and how I discovered who they were. And from that point on, that night, when they took me up on the ship and injected me with monatomic gold into my pineal gland, I was allowed to remember the visits from my youth all the way through adulthood, including the previous month of August of 2014, which I thought was a horrible nightmare, but it ended up it was a medical procedure, and it ended up saving my life.
Wow.
Okay, so my background. I started off in the late 60s working narcotics. From there, I
want to say as a law enforcement officer, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So from there I went on, and actually I was shot, and I took 3 rounds at one time. One in the left orbit of my face, directly onto the bone, your skull bone, like it would be to the left of my left eye. I have a hole there, indentation. And I took one in the lower neck, and then I took one in the stomach. And believe it or not, the only one that hurt was the one in the stomach. And that hurt for a year. I was blinded in my left eye. I have since regained 99% of my vision in that eye through quantum healing hypnosis therapy with one of Dolores Cannon's number 2s. So my journey from there is I started my college. And my college lasted for much, much longer than what most people ever can dream of, because all my college had been paid for. So I just kept on going from one college and one program to another, to another, to another. And after the first, I think, 4 or 5 years, I went in the Army, military police. And I was at McClellan in Alabama. From there, I went to Fort Ord in California with Forces Command. And after I finished there, I had my choice, and I went with Electronics Command at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. At the time that the Electronics Command was morphing into the greater NSA. And while I was at Fort Monmouth, because my mother's oldest sister was an RN and a nurse in Monmouth County. She did private duty nurse after her husband, who was a retired Newark cop, took a job with a pharmaceutical firm at night. So she did private duty nurse for a guy named Crazy Joe Bonanno. And apparently he had a family member that needed all-night nursing care. So when I transferred to Electronics Command, I reported to a guy. I don't really want to tell you who he was, but he was a beautiful, beautiful man. He had 39 years in with the CIA. He started with the OSS. So when we hooked up, he decided that they were going to get me to do a job, or to be the liaison, I should say, with a guy named Mike Lorello, who was a real junior soprano of North Jersey. See, because the CIA didn't want their name on certain things, and therefore, let's get Scott to do it, because Scott's aunt is doing nurse duty for a very special person in that organization, and no one's going to mess with him. Now, I did what I was asked. Nothing that would bother anyone, to be honest with you. It turned out to be extremely helpful for our country, what they did. And, then I moved on. After I left there, that tour duty, I went to Clarkson University, worked on my MBA on my ass analysis, design of computer systems, and I was home probably 6 months, and I was awarded 3 good-sized federal grants that had to do with police training and regional project, supplying certain things for the 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid. And one pleasurable grant, and that was a book on fishing. So I worked on those for a few years, and after that, I continued going to school and working construction because I had gotten into the labor's union at a young age. And believe it or not, all these things tie in with each other. It's absolutely amazing how when you find out about life in your past and you find out how all these things are connected with people that lead up to a certain point. So I got into interlocking paving stone at the inception when they started becoming made in North America and Canada.
So hold on, Scott. I want to kind of put this in time frame. So in the early 50s, you went to college. You were in college.
No, not 50. I was born in 49.
Oh, 49. So, okay. So yeah. let's put some dates around this. So you
started college in 1969.
So 69. Okay. And then you went into the Army.
Mm-hmm. After that's in 74, 75.
In 74, 75. And then you did how many years? 3 years, 4 years, 6 years?
No, I did, on the books a couple of years, but I got involved more than that.
Yeah. So you did 3 years. And then at that point, you were at the signal, that then became the NSA. And so then you were doing work for the CIA or an agency. We'll say an agency.
Yeah, that'd be better.
Because your family relation with a notorious crime boss in New Jersey.
Right. And I just, I was asked to do something and I did it. And it led to other things. And I developed a relationship with this individual of mutual respect. You don't condone I was an investigator at Fort Monmouth, and I nailed a lot of people that were involved in things that they were into.
Sure.
And that was part of the way that I think I got the respect from him. But not only that, when I had to deal with him, but for what they wanted, I was totally honest with him, and he recognized that. And
him being your handler, which is to this day you don't want to disclose because of.
No, him being the real junior soprano in North Jersey.
Oh.
Okay. My handler, I think he's probably dead by now.
Yeah.
He was a legend in New Jersey and the greater New York area, which is the area that I worked in.
All right. So well, I just want, let me, because I got to get, it's very important that I get this picture laid out because that will lead. And also for the listeners too, because you have a very compelling story. So I want to make sure there's no confusions because, I can already tell you no sooner than we get done with this interview, you're going to get attacked, right? From the disinformation guys and you're going to, I want to make sure our picture is clear here.
Yeah. I got to be honest with you. I because of the current case that I'm involved in,
yes,
which we'll get into later.
Yep.
And because of the incident that happened on September 14th with two other cops who went and told everyone, but also for my location. This is what I mean about everything being at an exact spot and time when it's supposed to be. Because for when we walked out of my house at 2:45 in the morning from our meeting on a international thing, the very first cop out in the lawn said, "Oh my goodness, look at the sky."
Yeah.
Everything seems so close.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now remember that statement. Everything seems so close.
Yeah, we're going to come to that, and I can't wait. But I just want to make sure we get the backstory down, so that way. So you came out of the military. You did the work for the agency. We'll just say an agency. You got close to a senior member or a junior member of a mob family. And during that time, that's when you got into the paver business and some other things. No,
it was after I finished at with the Electronics Command, I came back to Potsdam where I live, and I went to work on a federal project, and when I wasn't there for a couple months, and I got to communicate with some of these federal people that were doling out the grant money.
Yeah.
And they encouraged me to pursue.
Yep. Hey, Scott, why don't we hold that there? And then when we come back from the break, we'll pick the story up from there. So,
okay.
We are talking with our good friend Scott V about his experience, getting some background story. It's going to be a fun one. Hold on.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and a podcast. You can join me live here every weeknight from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or on the web at www.themidnightocean.com. As you guys will see, I am sporting the Mercedes-Benz Nico hat. Nico Rosberg. Go, Nico. Wish you the best of luck. Hopefully, guys, if he wins tomorrow or this week, Sunday, in the Mexican Grand Prix, it'll be tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow, not Sunday. If he wins tomorrow, he will wrap up the championship. Go, Nico. He's always been my favorite driver. Yeah, normally I don't wear Mercedes-Benz hats, as you guys know. So if you're watching us on Facebook, we got a message scrolling across the screen for you. It will happen eventually. So just remember that, and you can always join us on YouTube. You can also follow us on Spreaker as well, live. And of course, if you are a Twitter type of person, you can receive tweets from us at the MN Ocean. That's at the MN Ocean. And if you're watching us on YouTube for the very first time, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. That does help us out tremendously. So on the show tonight, right before we went off the break, this is going to be a little bit longer segment here. We have Mr. V, and I'm going to call him that because he is telling his story for the very first time. And what we're doing right now is it is a contactee. I don't want to say abduction story. I'm going to say more of a contactee story. And we're just getting some of the background on Mr. V. And, it almost sounds like, Scott, I will tell you, you're falling right in line with almost like the smoking man, from the X-Files, your background. You were military. You got involved in the agency very early on. You were in active investigations very early on. They saw their potential. You are highly educated. And we'll get to that as well. You like you said, I think you alluded to it. Your school was paid for, and you took full advantage of that. And so where we left off is you came out of the military. You are now, after doing some work for an agency, you are now back home in New Jersey or thereabouts. New York, and you are now, you said you got involved in the paver business. So that's
yes. First I had the three large federal grants that lasted for a few years, they you got to understand, once they get their claws into you, it doesn't seem like you're ever far from being asked about something or asked to do something. So basically, I was going to grad school after the grants, and during the grants I was going to grad school, and I was working construction. And because I had been put in a labor's union the week after I graduated from high school, and I had a great relationship with the labor leaders. And I, to be honest with you, it was because of your work ethic. I was brought up by a father that was a first sergeant in what they was the 815th Station Hospital, at a VA hospital in Tupper Lake, New York. And he was reservist then. He was a World War II veteran. But he, with 7 children and a mother that worked also for the VA at the time, he ran the 7 kids like it was his own little company. You had to. I can't fathom raising 7 children today, the way that we were raised. It was just an incredible experience. And I was lucky enough to live in a village where everyone knew each other and everyone, was amicable. Everyone watched out for each other. We never feared anything. We never feared walking home late at night in the dark. Or I grew up in a neighborhood where there were it was a small village of less than 10,000, but just in our block, there were 116 children, basically my age. Big families, Catholic, majority of people were Catholic there, French Canadian. It was a logging community and it also had a Veterans Administration hospital at the time. So, we had a lot of contacts. My father had a lot of contacts. I think he spent 24, 25 years total in, and he, ended up as I think a W4, Warrant Officer 4 when he retired. But, so I had a lot of contact with a lot of people that were also military, and I also had a relative on my mother's side who was with the company right out of Army, and he was in places around the world before they came on the news, and he would always, a couple times a year, come home and spend time with my father. And being the oldest son, I got to learn a lot. So also my father had two brothers that were a brother-in-law and a brother that were absolutely excellent blasters. They worked in the mining industry and in the construction industry. So you learn, you learn from the adults. It was a large family, and the men had a hunting camp, and you spent a lot of time during the hunting season there, and you learned a lot if you listened and paid attention. You also learned how to shoot, which certainly was a gift when it came time to qualify with the military. And so it was, it was a thing where you grew up in an environment that was just extremely safe, and there was always something to do. We had our own ski center. We had our own ski center in the whole 9 yards, and and that in itself serviced such a wide area that you made a lot of friends from all over, and that continues to this day.
Yeah.
So in any event, so I'm back in Potsdam after the military, and finished with the grants, and working construction, got into the paving stone by accident, and ended up doing the Olympic Village in Lake Placid, New York, where all their sidewalks are red paving stone now. But I did the first set of sidewalks and some village projects, a lot of estate projects, and the Olympic venues. So that was my big break, because after the 80 Olympics, everyone wanted to go to Lake Placid to see where the Olympics were. And an architect named Robert Windler out of New Haven, Connecticut, saw my work. And he was the architect for a Long Wharf project in New Haven, Connecticut, which is where 91 and 95 come together. And it's on the harbor. And it was land reclaimed on harbor, what they call harbor fill sill. And they knew that they needed something flexible as a surface for all their hard surfaces, because of the fact that this land would continue to settle for a while. So I was chosen to do their work, and that led to, we did roads, 4-lane roads, parking lots, walkways, sure, everything. And but that got so much attention that it ended up where I basically lived 5 to 6 days a week in Connecticut, working anywhere from New York City all the way through Connecticut, up through Massachusetts to New Hampshire to Westchester County in New York, on all these huge projects for all the big firms. And I got all my people from the North Country here. They have a good work ethic. Mostly guys off the farm, and got them into the union. And they did quite well because the union scale where we were working was about twice as much as the union scale from where the union was located up on the St. Lawrence River. So that kept on blossoming to the point where, you know, if you create a monster, you got to feed it.
Yep.
But I got to backtrack a little bit. Just as I got into the paving stone, I got an appointment through New York State's current governor, Andrew Cuomo's father, Mario Cuomo, to work for the Commissioner of Labor in the field, representing the Commissioner of Labor in the field as a safety and health inspector. And one of my major responsibilities was explosives. Now, by that I mean total control of explosives from manufacture to use. And making sure you knew how to inspect the record keeping, and you knew where all the explosive storage devices were and who was doing what, the whole 9 yards. So I did that until the summer of 1985, when the paving stone business just got too big, and that's when we started the project in New Haven, and from there it was just straight out. But the thing is that I always had contact with people from the different agencies, from major crimes in New York State to DEA to FBI to
Sure. I mean, you're an asset. I mean, they turned you. We'll use that term, and I don't mean to be negative about it, but they turned you. You were an asset when you were in the military. They knew you had connections. I mean, it only makes sense. You're in the construction business. You know, you're tied into the unions. I'm sure one day, and I've never talked with you, Scott, but I'm sure that your relationship and the relationships you fostered in your paving business would probably come back and be used in future events. And I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, yeah, they had you from the time you agreed to work with them on the one project when you were in the military. I get it. Now, so you did the paving, and then Como reached out to you in 85 to become an inspector?
In 80. From 80 to 85, just as I started the paving stone, doing some local private jobs, I got an appointment through the union with Cuomo as safety and health inspector.
So they actually worked with the union. Okay, so you were doing both.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't know that they were allowed to do that. But okay.
Well, you're allowed to have a business, private business on the side, as long as you don't do business with the people that you have to do your official duty work with.
Sure.
So in any event, things, like I said, things took off in 85 with the paving stone to the point where it was just huge, and constantly we were working up here you can work probably 6-7 months out of the year, then you've got we've got a hard winter. But down on the coast and around New York, Boston, Connecticut, your working season is much, much longer. So it was one of these things where we got into it, and it got bigger and bigger, and we were working year round. And in 1987, this is important too, because it's a key thing to remember. One of my customers in Stamford, Connecticut, Frank Mercedes and Son, got the job to build a new General Mail facility in Stamford. And because I had done a couple projects for them using paving stone, they liked the system that we did our work with, how we did our work. And so we used to take a couple months off and travel during the hard winter months. And I was in St. Martin's with my family, and I got contacted by my project manager that this company was trying to get a hold of me. They wanted to meet, and so they flew me up, and they showed me what they had, and they asked me to do it. And I studied the specifications and the prints and everything, and I said, well, this is a horse of a different color. And I said, I'll do it cost plus for you. They said, would you? I said, sure. So that's the arrangement that we made. I did my first General Mail facility, installing something like a paver, but it actually was a 1 foot by 2 foot plank made out of asphalt and other materials. Basically, it was made out of the waste from the roofing division of Manville Corporation, who for years and years and years was the sole supplier to the U.S. government, both military and the post office, because they also made that non-slip surface for the bridge deck of ships. So I did this project for Frank Mercedes, and this was in 1987, the year that Manville came out of bankruptcy. Talk about stuff coming back to haunt you.
Yeah.
So they moved their plant to Waukegan, Illinois. And when they did and started production up again, they were out of production for a few years, and the federal government allowed a Canadian company to supply the product under, a waiver to that law by American Act back then. So they moved their plant to Waukegan, Illinois, and the guy who put the plant back together, the die that cut the plank, put it upside down. So we started our big project. I think there's about 300 and some odd thousand square feet indoors on this job, and we got a bunch down, and my project superintendent came to me and he said, we got a problem. And I said, what is it? He said, look at the plank. And I looked at it, and he said, now look at the instructions. So I looked at the instructions, and I said, I can't believe it. It's upside down. It was cut upside down because it had a semi-finished top. So I said, we got to get a hold of Manville first and find out what's going on. So I talked it over with the contractor and the general contractor and my customer, and I talked it over with the people at the facility and the government representatives. And I got a hold of Manville, and they flew in, and these two old guys came in that ran this division for years, and they couldn't believe it. They said, of course, I had called them and told them to go check the warehouse, take a look at the plank, and then go check the die on the machine that was cutting the plank. And so they flew in. We went out to lunch, and they said, look, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll pay you for this and this, and we'll ship you all new plank and everything. And I said, that's not going to work for me. And they said, why is that? I said, because paving stone is going to start, because this was like in February.
Sure. Paving
stone's going to start here in this area. I've got tons of work, and I'm doing a cost plus job, and the type of work I do, and the mosaic work, I said I get $30 a square foot for. So I don't think I'm going to be spending months in this facility during my money earning season. And they said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to heat the building to 95 degrees. You're going to pay for that. I said, we're going to rent my brother-in-law's one of these little like a steamroller for asphalt that you ride on, but they're small. And I said, then I'm going to get the company that makes our finisher and sealer to up the solids contents, and we'll knit this stuff all together. And I said, really? I said, yeah. So these guys ended up being heroes back at Manville, but they also were very loyal to me.
Yeah.
And from that point on, I got all their work.
Plus, and let's kind of, look at this from a high. You have individuals who are watching you because, like you said, this is work for the federal government. So you have officials and entities that are watching you because, they keep up with people and and they see that you're a thinker, that you're a person, an individual who is, not just a doer, but also a thinker. You process this out. Okay. So I get this. I understand where we're kind of painting the picture. When did you get involved back into law enforcement?
Never left it.
You never left it. So you were always.
Yep.
Okay.
I was always being contacted, being asked to do certain things, the whole 9 yards. So
sure.
So, so I continued to do my paving stone work, and to be honest with you, I got really tired of traveling from where I live 7 hours away from my main work area. And so we took a vacation in January, went to Disney World, and I said, what a beautiful place to start using paving stone. And I got a meeting with their head landscape architect, and that was 85. And 87, I was supposed to do a project for them called the Direct Bus Drop Facility at Magic Kingdom. And the market went to shit in October of 87, if you remember.
Yep. Well, I actually graduated. I don't want to put age. I graduated in 87, but yes, the real estate market just completely bottomed out.
Yeah, well, it was the stock market that went down the tubes too.
Yeah.
So I get a call. I'm home in the office in October, and I get a call from Disney. He says, "Scott, we got a problem." And I thought, oh, they canceled my project, I said, "What is it?" And I said, "My project?" Goes, no. Don't worry about that. It's just delayed. We got a problem here. A project didn't go union at Epcot. And the Irish labor leaders out of Orlando came over and started a riot in the Epcot parking lot, and they turned over some cars and set them on fire. I said, "Really?" I said, "How's that my problem?" He said, "Well, here's the thing." And Disney does this. They investigated me for a year before they gave me their work. Yep. They said, when we did the investigation, we found out from all your customers and the union people that you dealt with that you could go anywhere and work in any union with your own people and no one bothered you. So we think that you know someone. Can you help us out? And now this was a big union job for us and for the union to get in to Disney. The year before that, we had done the Orlando Arena for the city of Orlando, pulled them out of a hole. And what I ended up doing is I ended up hiring Disney's head landscape architect a few years after our first meeting. And from there, he established, he's world famous now, but he established his own private business, and he did work for me up in the Northeast. He did the landscape architect drawings because, people live in Westchester and Fairfield counties and that part of the country, very wealthy, up in Weston, places like that in in Massachusetts. We used to have a saying, more money than brains, because if one neighbor did their driveway and their swimming pool and their sidewalks and everything, well, the other neighbor had to outdo that neighbor. So you can imagine the type of environment that we were involved.
Sure.
Okay.
I want to, Scott, I don't want to be critical, but I want to we got to move this along in a sense. It's good that we have the backstory, but I'm just going to ask that if it's not part of the overall story that we're going to get to here when we get back. And the reason being is that we actually got a hard break that's coming up right now. So, I do ask that it's a 4-hour show, and I can see that we can fill it all up, 2 hours of it, just giving the backstory before we get, and I'm just telling you that because I know we got guys in the chat room, that are just chomping at the bit to hear the UFO side of the stories. This other stuff is fascinating, don't get me wrong, but we want to kind of move it along and get with them. So when we get back, we'll talk to our good friend Scott V. Right now, he's telling us the backstory. I think it is important that you understand this is a normal guy who has experienced some pretty extraordinary things, but we're finding that is always the case, especially when you deal with government insiders and people who have worked with alphabet agencies.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and podcast. I am your host, Jeff Norton. You can join us here on the web at www.themidnightocean.com, or, of course, live. You want to stay up late at night, you can listen to us live every weeknight from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, we do feed to all of the social media sites. We have live feeds going out to Facebook. We have a very special message for you below. We also have feeds going out to YouTube. I know that Twitter suspended their Periscope project, but we never used it anyways. But you can still reach us on Twitter at the MN Ocean. Now, I do want to tell people that tonight's guest, Mr. V, Scott V, is joining us. And what we're doing is Scott's never told his story before. So this is actually a two-part kind of process here at the Midnight Ocean. Number one, I want to make sure that we lay out his history, his backstory. And that's why I asked him to go into great detail. I know it's frustrating to some of you out there in chat room who expected to hear aliens and all sorts of crazy stories. Those, I don't want to say crazy stories, but those stories are going to come in due time. You know, no one's ever been introduced to Mr. V before on any show, anywhere. So it's very important that we get the backstory laid out because, as you know, we have several UFO investigators that are listening. They listen to our show. We had one last night. So Mr. Stanton Friedman. So we need to get these story, get his, I don't want to say story, but get his history well documented and on down. So that way we can move forward, because you know darn well when a new person of significance, background, and pedigree comes forward with stories of contactee and speaking with aliens, you know darn well that the trolls are going to be coming out tomorrow. The NSA. I'm surprised we're still on the air, to be honest with you. But we'll just kind of do it. So please bear with us. I know it's a tedious process, but there is a method to this madness, as they would say. And we are getting to it now. And so as Scott, talked about his dealings with the labor unions in Orlando, I've always said, man, Scott, you got to be careful about the mouse. You don't want to upset the mouse here. I live in Florida, and I will tell you, the mouse has a lot of power and a lot of influence. So you definitely want to stay on his good side, or you might find yourself wearing concrete shoes, in Biscayne Bay. For those, well, that's an inside joke. That was my feeble attempt of a joke, Scott. I had a great relationship with people at Disney, sure. Because we had a different work ethic than what is normally found in the South, especially in Florida. So people were a little laid back. I will give you that much. Yes.
You know that. Yes. We know that. Yes. So we brought in projects early, and that's what they want. They want them into revenue as soon as possible. Sure. And we pushed everybody along and did our job and did more work for them. And because of the work we did for the Orlando Arena, doing the same thing the year before, we were given the job to do Orlando's Universal Studios, because the city of Orlando and Orange County voted the bonds for the project. So we were quite busy. I had basically no life. I did all the Hard Rock's work. I did all of Robert Earl's work for Lombard's Landing and his other places. And but not only did we do the installation, but we did the design. We did most of the interior fit out too for Hard Rock Cafe in Orlando at Universal, because I had talented people working for me. And we were just always eager to help. I mean, nothing like being out of the winter in northern New York and being able to work in Florida. Yeah. The men loved it, and we were treated very well by our customers. And I got complete artistic freedom from Spielberg for saving him on an item. that I caught right away, and he was very nice about it. So we had things were great. And then in May of 1990, we're finishing Hard Rock, and who shows up but a van full of people from Manville Corporation. And what did they want? They wanted me to go to work for them. And I said, are you out of your mind? I said, stay with me for a day and we'll see. I'll bring you to all the jobs that we've got going around the area. And I've got 5 years worth of work out ahead of me.
Yeah.
So we basically, they spent most of the week with me, and one guy stayed back and stayed the weekend with me at my home. And we came up with an idea where I would give them 20 hours a week, but they would have to meet certain conditions, and I wouldn't work for them. I'd partner for them and run this division. Now, the reason they needed this is because when they went bankrupt, they were not supplying the asphalt plank. Canadian company came in, and this was a very lucrative business. If they didn't turn their product into plank and sell it to the government, which they charged them very handsomely for, they were paying $8 million a year to landfill the waste. So they were anxious to get back into the business. And apparently someone knew I had a good relationship with the Postal Service and with the government, and therefore they decided that they wanted to use me, as I found out years later. Because here's what they didn't do. And this, I have to make a point, because this still gets me very angry. In 1987, when they had to, what they call is allocute in bankruptcy proceedings, when they had to reveal to the federal judge everything that they made that contained asbestos, what do you think is the one item they forgot about that contained asbestos?
Oh, the planking?
You bet. And they had sold the government hundreds of millions of square feet through the years with asbestos in it. But they forgot about that. You see why they were using me?
Yeah. So
when I found out about it, of course I went to Washington and said, this is not going to work, guys. They actually offered me a ton of more money because they were paying me a lot of money for 20 hours. Plus they had paid for our offices, all my staff, the whole 9 yards. I moved the division out of Denver to Orlando and staffed it with all my own people. But what we did do is, that was in June. By December, Manville went from 23% to 97% of market share. We sold out production for 5 years. So then they got greedy. They wanted to, what do you need to spend $500,000 on your staff for the next 5 years, because you sold everything that we can make. Yeah. Well, that's not fair. And of course, that's when I found out from one of the board members that they had lied about the asbestos. So we parted ways. But what they forgot was all the sales contracts were in my name, not theirs, because they were trying to get away from the limelight of responsibility. And so what I did is, after I got permission from the government, I went to their competitor, who is still able to supply product in the United States. They built a plant in Greeley, Colorado. And I said, look, I've got all these contracts, 2 biggest jobs in the world, even. And I said, I'll sell them to you at a discount, and here's the reasons why. And of course, they took it. Well, 2 of the biggest jobs in the world were Morgan Station in New York City and the new General Mail facility in Brooklyn.
Which is funny that you say, James, but I used to drive by, well, right now it was a field, but I used to not drive by. I used to take the train when I would go to Chicago. We would go right by the old plant. And to this day, it still has they have a fence around it. It's over there by the power plant. And you can't go on the property at all, because it's still hazardous waste, hazmat. And it's all, they got a 12-foot barbed wire fence that runs all the way around the perimeter, is right next to the power plant there in Waukegan. And like I said, our commuter train would go right by it. Yeah, I know exactly where that plant was. Wow.
So, well, in any event, this is one of these points I want you to remember about everything being connected.
Sure.
Okay? Because you see, before I started doing the work and running the division and having control of the product worldwide, the Carpenters Union used to install a product. But because of my great relationship with the Laborers Union, who I gave the legal rights called the legal work assignment for the paving stone to install, they asked for the asphalt plank because no one had given a legal work assignment for that, and I also gave them that. Okay? Of course, that almost got me killed, but didn't make any difference. It didn't work out that way because see, we all think, and this gets into the paranormal, the ET stuff. We all think that our life, all these things are not connected, but I found out they are. I don't know about you, but my mother used to say a couple things. One of them was, there's no such thing as a coincidence, and everything happens for a reason. Well, I'll be darned if she was not right about that.
Yeah.
I can tell you that because after I was allowed to remember in September 2014 and visited constantly and shown everything in my past, you realize that they are all connected. Mm-hmm. Okay? So, in any event, I was involved. I had come home the summer before, in the early summer of 94, I think it was. No, it was summer of 93 that I came home to visit my parents, and I was rear-ended in an accident, and it dislodged the main bullet fragment that was one of the fragments that was still in my head, about the size of a thumbnail, because they couldn't get it out back then because of its location next to the infraorbital nerve, which, if it would have been nicked, would have caused facial paralysis. So they left it. Again, that's all connected. Mm-hmm. Because when I got shot, the plastic surgeon who was on call that night in Burlington, Vermont, was a major in the Israeli Mossad. Because he was there providing cover for the team of engineers from Israel that came over from Israel to learn how to make the Vulcan gun, an electronic cannon.
Yeah.
Which was made by General Electric at that time in Burlington, Vermont. So naturally, when they sent the engineers over, some of their Mossad people came over to protect him. Now, this doctor, Dr. Charles Barney, God rest his soul, did all the burn cases from the 67 war. So he was a magician. Because no one, I had a hole the size of a 50-cent piece in the side of my face. And no one can look at me and tell that ever occurred to me. That's how good he was. So we bonded and remained lifelong friends. Now, which means I owed someone a favor. Okay? Because he put my face back together, and he did an incredible job. So, as the years go by and about everything being connected, this is, and it's not just connected with us people here on Earth and our interactions, but it's also connected with everything in the universe, believe it or not. I kind of hard to put this. If it weren't for the fact that my wife and the two other cops weren't with me at the time, that night in September, mm-hmm. that witnessed everything, I probably wouldn't, be so vocal. But because of reasons of who was there and what happened immediately afterwards, because they went and told everyone in their stations, so everyone knew. But where I lived at that time we were there specifically for that time and date.
Yeah.
Because when they show you all these things that happened and why they happened to make sure that you were there, that's the amazing part when I say about things being connected.
Yeah.
So, but here's the other thing, and we'll get into the ET thing now. If in Burke, New York, which is in Clinton County, it's on the New York Canadian border. There's a Homeland Security Northeast Border Electronic Detection Center. They got all kinds of electronic equipment, radars and computers in the whole 9 yards. That's straight line from there. Went right through my house. Kept on going to Fort Drum, New York. Watertown, New York, Fort Drum, home of the 10th Mountain Division, where they have all kinds of detection equipment and radars and the whole 9 yards. They do drones out of there, everything. So when I had that visit that night, and because I was working an active case with an agency, a very important case, I knew that they knew. It was impossible not to know that there's this huge rectangular shaped starship parked over this person's house. It was impossible for our government, the LIGO labs, which I confirmed, NASA, and just about every other major intelligence agency in the country they knew that at that time of night on September 15th of 2014, that these aliens we know as the 2017s, as found in the Russian KGB Schmerz book of Alien Races, Part 5. Now remember, 2017 and 2022 are some of the only information about this race besides these three things. They drive rectangular ships. They use wormholes to travel from their interstellar. And they fold space. And to use a wormhole, you need to fold space.
Yeah.
You know your astrophysics. I mean, you have to bring it together. Okay, good. And that allows you faster than light travel because you're jumping huge sections of space at a time. So what happened that night is we come out of the house and the first cop stops and he goes, "Wow, look at the sky. Everything seems so close." And then immediately after that, second cop says, "Listen to the coyotes. They don't talk like that. They're whining." So I look up at the moon and I said, not even a full moon, but what's that planet doing next to the moon? We didn't get it. We didn't have a clue right then. So we look up, but I don't know, but what's the matter with the coyotes? Poor coyotes. God, listen to them. They're crying. And they were. In fact, this was what you call fourth quarter moon night, slack moon tide. You're not supposed to go surfing then. Remember that. Okay? So we're, for 15, 20 minutes, we're just looking at the sky because when they fold space, the constellations that we normally see fill up more of your visual space because space is actually folded.
Yeah.
And it's closer together. So, we're just blown away by this.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of, and I want to kind of tell people, if you want to visualize this, take a piece of paper and put dots on it and then kind of pinch it. You'll notice that those dots will come closer to each other as you pinch that piece of paper. Or better yet, if you have something that's rubber in nature and you put dots on it and then you grab the center of that rubber and you pull it down or you push it up, all of those dots that are surrounding will actually concave in to each other, Thus, they look like they're closer to each other. That's the effect of folding space. I actually had a physicist show that to me.
Okay. So now I'm going to tell you what I called what I saw when I thought that what is that planet doing next to the moon?
Yeah.
What it was is their large spherical moon-shaped type ship, beautiful color and texture on it, was projecting. And I know this for a fact because after the visits and being taken time and shown and told and having questions answered, they project a proton-to-proton fusion reaction, and I'll explain how they get it from the reactor out of the ship. This thing looks just like a Death Star from Star Wars, and it basically projects the plasma, the same thing that's created in our sun, which is the major source of gravity for our solar system and most solar systems, I assume. So basically, that's how advanced they are. They figured this out a long time ago because in that KGB book, which was, it got loose after the Soviet Union broke up, they said in that book that the last time that they spotted these people on Earth was in 1935 in Czechoslovakia. Now, I know who they visited at that time. He became one of the greatest chemists in the world. He had a special chair at Clarkson University these last few years. He passed away this summer in his mid-90s. Beautiful, brilliant man. And when I saw him 2 years ago at my son's graduation, I knew immediately that he was the one that they visited, because I walked up to him and I told him what happened to me. And I said, they visited you too.
Hold on. So the last time they were here, they visited. Can you give us the chemist's name? His last name is Majezavec or something like that. I don't, I'd have to look it up. But he was really, really famous. He was at Clarkson University. Like I said, he passed away this summer. And he admitted it. He told me that. Now, here's the importance of this little meeting. Is because the next day, the morning after the visit, I'm on the computer doing my work, and I get contacted by some Mossad people who were out in LA raising money to go after the Hamas for putting explosives in those false bottoms of those tunnels that they dug into Israel and sucked soldiers in there and then blew them up, So they were raising money to go after them, just like they went after the people from the Munich games. And so they asked me if I'd take a video conference, and I said, sure. So they introduced themselves, and there's a guy and a woman, and they told me what they were doing and everything, and it hit me. See, I have a talent. I never forget a face, but I can see a face once, and I can age it forward and backwards. That favor that I owed that organization for my face being put back together was being called in. However, I explained to them the cases that I was on and the major case. And the gentleman said, that's honorable. He said, we'll see you when you're done. And I said, okay, thank you. And then the girl came back on and she goes, by the way, Miss Barden, here's a list. And she sent me this list. And this list started off at the top. It said 150 enlightened people. Now, I did not know what an enlightened was,
Never really, my world was totally different as far as that. I got away from the Catholic Church at a young age, and I wasn't into a whole bunch of things like that. So I was mainly interested in my work, to be honest. So I was a workaholic, to be honest with you. So I said to my wife, "What is this?" She goes, "I don't know. Let me look it up." So she looked it up. She Googled the list of enlightened people. And one of the first names on that list was a guy named Jesus Christ. Remember that moon-looking thing that I told you was projecting and folding space, projecting the plasma?
Sure.
Yeah, well, that was the Star of Bethlehem.
Mm.
Because the first name on the list was my name of 150 people. Because I was visited, hours before that. The second name on the list was a person that I grew up with that I hadn't seen in 15 years. And didn't see until the third time they came in folded space on a slack moon tide, fourth quarter moon night when you don't go surfing. Okay?
Well,
however,
Scott, I want to hold off there because we actually got to take a break. And so I want to hear more about the list and the names, obviously, of the people that are on the list. We're talking with our very good friend, Scott V, as he's joining us, and he's telling us for the very first time his interactions with extraterrestrial beings. Wow. It's fascinating stuff, guys. Can you imagine being on a list, being handed a list, and your name being on it right next to Jesus Christ? Wow. Incredible stuff. We'll be back in a few minutes with our very special guest, Mr. V.
Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean radio show and a podcast. As we just completed our third segment, going into the fourth. For those that don't know, those are watch bells that ring on the show. Kind of a nautical feel. If you're an old Navy man or Navy gal, you'll know what those are. You all had to ring those bells every once in a while in your Navy career. Wow, what a show. I think we're getting into the meat and potatoes. But I do have to agree with our guest, Scott V. There's nothing that happens unplanned. I'm a firm believer in that. I'm finding as I talk to more and more people, especially abductees or contactees. In this case, I think it's more of a contactee. They have interesting backstories. And I think that's why we spent the first hour and a half getting that backstory out so you can understand how it all ties together. And on the Skype line, we have Scott, Mr. V, joining us, and he is tying it together. He is stitching this story together like a well-made suit. So, Scott, if you want to use that analogy, there you go. But so I want to ask, so you are at your home, correct? You have your wife, you have two other officers, sworn officers, law enforcement officers with you. You guys walk outside. You see one of the officers notice that the sky is a little bit closer than it should be, and that there's a strange object hovering by the moon that's a little bit different, and it doesn't really click with you at first what you're witnessing. Now, I just have to ask, is it a projection kind of thing, or is it the fact that they just warped space in front of you, and that's what you're seeing the effects of that folding of space? Okay,
so how I figured it out, how it all came together before I researched it, was that after 15 minutes of us, the cops and I, talking about, wow, this strange sky, it's just so beautiful, it's just mesmerizing, they kind of get nervous and they said, we're going, Scott, getting out of here. Because, you see, think about this. The coyotes run at night and they interact with the moon, right?
Yeah.
Usually a full moon. So they got it. They understood that something was not right, because you've got a fourth quarter moon, yet you've got this other object between the Earth and the moon that is pulsating such a bright light that it looks almost like a bigger full moon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they got it, and because they're closer to nature.
Well, didn't you ever? The coyotes, absolutely. But don't you think that maybe because obviously these visitors were there to talk to you, don't you think that maybe with the other officers, they put the little message, skedaddle, scram. We have some business to talk about here, and you guys are in the way?
I have no idea, but all I know is that they took off, and I went back inside, turned off all the outdoor lights, came back out because the sky was just too beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm looking off. I can tell you exactly where it was because I used a GPS, I used the electronic compass, the azimuth, everything, and I've got an 8-inch Meade Cassegrain telescope. So I'm looking at the sky, and I noticed about 25, 30 degrees north of east, because the road we lived on was exactly in the east-west direction, and about 30 to 40 degrees in the azimuth up. I noticed this object, and if you could take 2 springs, okay, large end to a small end. And they were glowing white, and you took it and you tumbled it and kept on tumbling it, bringing it closer to you. This is what I could see, but I thought at first, looks like the space station's coming down. So I got my app out on my iPhone, but no space station in that vicinity. In fact, no satellites, no nothing. But you see, back in 1969, I was on a detail when one of these craft came down outside my village. And we were called in to provide initial security before the Air Force came in and carted it away. Because we lived in between Rome Griffiths Air Development Center, the air base in Rome, New York, and Plattsburgh Air Force Base, which was a SAC base.
Yeah.
B-52s.
So you saw this, you've seen this craft before, you just didn't realize it until...
Right. Well, here's what it is, though. Think about it. What they were doing is the craft that was coming in from their home planet, which I've already identified, it was folding space in sections, okay? And it would look like two white tornadoes, way off in the distance, tiny, getting bigger and bigger, coming closer to you. At the same time, to hold the exact right position, because when you do the physics, if you're going to fold space and you want to end up at a certain spot, you better have the math right. So that's what the round circular ship, which is identified in history, believe it or not beyond, even older than, and I'll explain that, even older than the Star of Bethlehem, because you see, Christ wasn't enlightened. Let me explain to you what an enlightened person is. We're not so special, any different than anyone else. Okay? But what they do is they use us. Okay? They inject us into our pineal gland with monatomic gold, which allows just a lot of amazing things. Not only did it improve my health, I was on 9 medications 3 times a day. I've had 21 major surgeries in 14 years. Everything turned in a matter of days. My doctors could not believe it. They call it a miracle. Okay.
Now, what is monatomic gold? What is it?
I guess it's monatomic gold is basically the key to eternal life in a way. It basically replaces your system as far as it first of all allows the aliens to communicate with you. Okay. And they do. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. And this has been going on all my life, but I never realized it because I never understood what was happening. But after that September thing, they started visiting every night and explaining and showing me things from my past, right from when I was born, right on through to the meeting I had with a 5-foot Arctic owl, which I never thought, how did, like you don't think about it, especially when you're young. You don't think there's anything strange or wrong about it, but you could never, you can't get it out of your mind. You can never understand what they don't come. Arctic owls don't come 5 foot, But my dogs that were with me, they knew enough not to hang around. They took off and went home. But I got in trouble because I was an hour late for dinner, but I couldn't explain why. Well, now I understand why, because they showed me that visit again. They showed me visits so many times. And so that's what I mean about them using you. I should be dead several times by now. You don't get shot in the head, and especially where I got shot, and in the stomach, and survive that easy. Especially when you're way out in the middle of nowhere. And just happen
to have the doctor that you needed to have in order to save your life sitting there at your hospital. Yeah, that's phenomenal.
But I have been in crashes of all kinds of vehicles, aerial and and walked away from every single one of them.
Wait a minute. So you've actually been in an airplane crash?
Yeah, and helicopter too.
Single engine airplane?
Yeah, single and a double.
Wait.
I'll tell you.
Single, a double, and a helicopter.
Yeah. So let me tell you something. I can name you the 3 guys who flew the weapons in and the drugs out of Nicaragua.
Okay. So that was all right. So that you're doing work for the agency or for some agency, and you've
no. They were close friends.
Oh.
And when they came home, they immediately came to me separately, not as 3, but each individually, and told me because they didn't realize what they were getting into. Now I want to make this clear. What went on with that thing, I don't agree with. However, I can understand, and that's part of being a good investigator, is to understand why people do things naturally. The big fear was communism entering the Western Hemisphere, right?
Yep.
But Congress, we went through that period, what they called the Young Turks, where they forbid certain actions by the CIA, and you couldn't get money to this or to do that.
Yeah, but look, you got guys who ego driven. You know, pilots typically are ego driven individuals. I know firsthand. I'm a pilot, and I know that if some government agency came to me and said, "Hey, look," and they showed me their credentials, and they're like, "We want you to fly this airplane. Don't ask any questions. Keep your mouth shut." I would be like, "Well, what kind of airplane is it?" Number one, to determine if I wanted to fly it, and then number 2, I'd be like, "Where do you want me?" And when do I start? I mean, let's just be honest with you. I mean, it's not a far stretch to get pilots to do these types of operations.
One of them. I knew for a long time. I knew all 3 of them for a long time professionally. One of them was a New York State Trooper, a helicopter rotor pilot. Yeah. Okay. The other 2 also worked for the state of New York. Okay. But all 3 of them were New York Air National Guard pilots.
Yeah.
So you see about using people. They use people. So in any event, I was constantly visited, shown things. But that morning, after that, my wife looked up on her computer about the list of enlightened people. I said, and all of a sudden, everything started coming in, what they call the downloads. Okay? And my wife looked at me, and I looked at her, and I said, "I can see your aura." She goes, "What do you mean?" I said, I can see your aura. I can see auras on just about everything, living thing.
No, hold on. I want to make sure. So you see this craft and stuff. They didn't take you up in the craft or anything?
Oh, yeah. I want to get to that. Yeah.
Okay.
So this thing comes tumbling in, and I said, no, it's not anything that I can pick up as far as that should be in the area, but I've seen them before, so I'm going to stand here and I'm going to see what it is.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, this beautiful, huge, rectangular ship rose this red color sitting overhead. And that's when they brought me up. Now, they did it using some type of a light thing, and they've done it several times. And they've taken me physically, and we are spiritual beings. They can take your spiritual body out of your physical body. And they showed me this more than once, and I even got to discuss it with them because I knew that I was laying in bed talking to my wife, and next thing I know, I'm up on the ship, and I met someone who's a Zeta, who's well known here on Earth and who's in the entertainment industry, and had a discussion with him about meeting other aliens. And I said, I have no fear, He said, okay. Next thing you know, they put me back. My wife said, where'd you go? Because she knew I was there physically, but I wasn't there basically mentally, because she was talking to me. All of a sudden I stopped talking, yet I was wide awake. So, that is how they showed me the first time about the spiritual thing. But then as they started showing me things, they showed me where I was visited on St. Patrick's Day 2014. I talk about connected now, because this is where it gets really crazy. I'm watching for the very first time the special on CNN about the Gardner Museum robbery of St. Patrick's Day 1990. Fascinated, right?
Yeah, that's where they still don't know what happened with that, but that was where apparently someone...
That's not true.
They think it was an inside job, and I know they accused one of the guards of being, and they walked away with some, was it Rembrandt, or was it
Oh yeah, more than one piece of Rembrandt.
Yeah.
But it was the largest art heist in the history of the world.
Yeah.
And I solved it in 2014.
Well, don't they think, I mean, the guys from the movie, they did a movie, Wise Guys, and they think that was that crew that movie was based on was the crew that robbed the museum.
Nah, no way. Listen, I know the two guys who did it.
Oh.
Okay? I've talked to them. I as soon as, so I'm watching the special, and all of a sudden I'm gone. And all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but then they put me back, and I sit down and I write out everything.
You're gone. In other words, the alien, or your I don't want to say aliens, your contactees have swooped you away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I sit down and I open up my ledger and I write the entire story out. I mean, I know who supplied them with the cop uniforms that they dressed up on to rob the museum. I know what vehicle they used. I identified the vehicle last summer to the FBI. Because of the work that I'm involved with my wife's relative, I get, do a lot of intelligence work in different areas. And we live up on the northern border between New York and Montreal, basically, and the St. Lawrence River, where there's a huge Indian reservation that goes from all the way from outside of Montreal all the way down to Messina, New York. And it's kind of like no man's land. Well, a few years back, the Russians knocked off the leader of the mafia and his son within minutes of each other in Montreal and took over the business. And they have been using the people on the reservation and the freedom of the reservation to transport an unbelievable amount of and different types of drugs from here to California. So it's quite a big operation, and I'm very close with the person who's in charge of the investigative team and everything.
Sure.
And I've given them a lot of intel when I get it. And so in any event, when I say this, sometimes you wonder as an investigator, where did you get that information? How did you figure this out? Because no one else did. Just like the Gardner Museum robbery. They blamed the mafia. It wasn't the mafia. It was the Irish mob. I said, what? Believe me, I'm not very popular with some of the agents because I speak my mind. Okay.
Yeah.
What didn't you guys get? St. Patrick's Day, Boston? I said, who do you think did it? I said, there was mafia in that area, but mainly in Providence and that, but it's a strong organized crime and a much bigger and I think a better organization when you look at from what I've learned about them. The Irish mob, outshines the mafia 10-1 because they're much older and they're more motivated, and their motivation comes from the way the British have treated the Irish throughout history. And that's all part of the reason why they were fundraising for the IRA back in 1990. So, but unfortunately for them, I don't forget a face. So, when my oldest daughter married the son, who is a beautiful, beautiful person, a superior court officer, of one of the guys who robbed the museum, boy, I know that face, but I couldn't place it. But I didn't forget it. Then I had heard a few things here and there. Okay, things that you don't forget.
Sure.
Like a member of the family is the leader of the Irish mob. The joke about the hatchback. You know, things like that are so obtuse. And the source that I got the information from was solid, so I knew that there was something to it. But, you know, she didn't marry the old man or his brothers. She married the son, who was a straight shooter.
Yeah.
So then at the wedding, I meet the brother of the father-in-law who they robbed the museum with. Then I said, now I know those faces from somewhere. And I went to look. I started looking through the old flyers and things, and then I found their mugshots, not their mugshots, but the sketches from the museum robbery, and I put it side by side to the picture I had of them standing side by side, and sure as shit. But I'm not going to get into their last names now because the case is still active. They know that what we know and the whole 9 yards, and I came up with a plan to get the paintings returned. So, and they agreed to it, and they better live up to it because the consequences are not good if they don't. So, I go to my local contact, tell him, he contacts the FBI, and all this at the same time I'm being visited, right? And I knew because I was into the case for 3 months at the time, the first thing I did after I realized, they know. They had to know that starship was over our house. Because those two cops went and told everybody in the station, and if you know how cops work, something like that, everybody caught.
They're going to be giving each other grief, though. I know how cops work, and
right.
I'm surprised that they did say something, in the sense that, out of, how do I say, I don't want to say fear, but someone making fun of them, or their fellow officers making fun with them. Right. So it is impressive that they did say something.
Yeah, but guess what? There were several other people, as I found out in the following 2 years, there were several other people in the area that witnessed it also. Some of them cops, some of them State University cop. But because of the location between these 2 points of electronic detection, I knew that I had to call in and tell the people that I was working with, which I did.
Yeah.
And I told them the whole story. And so now remember what I said about everything being connected?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to asphalt plank. Well, the Carpenters Union used to install that before I changed things.
Okay.
And who ran the Carpenters Union in New York City? The Irish mob. So, in 1994, after I split up with Manville and discounted the sales and pulled the rug out from underneath their feet, they were driven out of the business. But the Irish mob, they were really, really angry because they couldn't steal all those benefits anymore. Because, that's what the mob does with unions. So, who's responsible for that? This guy right here, Scott V. Okay, kill him. Oh, really? Didn't work out too well for them because I'm home in Tupper Lake babysitting my father who had a stroke. My mother needed a break, so I was staying with my dad. And I get a call from Major Crimes. Hey, how do you know John Gotti? I met him once at a function in Connecticut, but I said I don't know him any more than what we know about him as far as intelligence. Why? Don't worry about it. Okay. My mother gets home after a week.
Coming up on a break here. So I want to hear about this. Now we got John Gotti in this, and his name's been mentioned. Wow. It's going to get interesting. I can already tell you that. But we'll take a quick break. We'll come back at the top of the hour, and we're talking with our guest, Scott V. Now, Scott, I will tell you, I do have some pictures that were sent that were forwarded on to me by John, and we have those, and we'll get those up as well for you. Oh. But take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk with our very special guest, Scott V. If you're not intrigued by now, I don't know what is going to get you intrigued. So hang in there.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean radio show and a podcast, and that's my good friend Ed Roman with his song "Clone the Sheep." I don't know how that one slipped in. That, if you're not awake by now, that one definitely would have woke you up. And as we talk with our very special guest, Scott V, Mr. V, as we're referring to him. Fascinating story, but it's just getting... It is amazing how things are getting tied together. And it is definitely all coming together. And I'm just going to turn it back over to Scott and let him finish up. So now, Scott, you have your daughter getting married to a relative, and we'll just leave it at that, of people that you have been told are involved in the heist, in the museum heist. And then you get approached by an official saying, "Hey, what do you know about John Gotti?"
Yeah. Well, it's not that I solved the case. Okay. I put it all together. It took me a while, but I put it all together, and then I went to the Bureau and the Justice Department and explained everything to them. Was not kind either in my words. Because you see, they blame the mafia on that robbery, and they put a couple guys in jails, about it. One guy died in jail. They just didn't have it, and I teased them because, as you know, most of your Bureau agents, a lot of them went to these big schools like Yale, Harvard, and Notre Dame, and like back Louis Freeh's, my buddy. But you see, I went to Clarkson University. But you can look this up in New York Times or Time Magazine. MBAers out of Clarkson make more money out of the box than Harvard or Yale graduates. So when I get into it with these guys, I tell them, when I show them certain things and explain certain things and how they got it wrong and this or that, I mean, I can understand. They got a tough job, but they blew this one. So I tell them, I said, you should have went to Clarkson. You shouldn't have wasted your money at Harvard or Yale. And now that no one tells me where they went to college anymore because they know what's coming next. So basically, I put it all together. I did a lot of traveling, spent a lot of time in Washington, spent a lot of time throughout the country. We were gone for 7 months, and I got to interview a person that set up their internet gambling operation, the whole 9 yards. So I put the entire package together. And, but after I had figured it out and gone to the Bureau, then I went and, I just faced them with it. I just told them what was known, and that, everything, every bit of it is in a story, but there's no denying. And I tell you how you can't deny it, because the 5-day wedding, Irish wedding, Hotel Marlowe in Boston, Cambridge. The day after the wedding, we had a private party for family-only members in my daughter and son-in-law's bar. And after he got through singing, he's an incredible singer, professional opera singer, couple songs, he came over to me, sat down beside me. Now 117 came over for the wedding from Ireland. He's the only one that I never saw until that moment. He sat down next to me and he said, "Scott, what happened?" Then I knew everything that I had heard before. Now this was like 4 years ago. Was true. I said, "I'll tell you what happened. What you didn't realize was Michael Aurello's people, who I got to know when I was with Electronics Command and working for the agency, were left orders to make sure that nothing ever happened to me. So when word got out that you guys were trying to find me to kill me, Aurello's people called Gotti and said, hey, send a guy up to protect him. And hunt down 2 guys that are after him and kill them. And that's what happened. I got the whole history on it. I know, I think one body was recovered, the other one, they haven't found the other body. But you remember what I said about everything being connected?
Yeah.
Now, what are the chances my daughter would marry into that family? What are the chances I would recognize these people? What are the chances that I got involved with asphalt plank? That started it all. Because that's what brought me to those people.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, and I'm listening to this story, and I'm sitting there going, all right, this guy is, and I'm just an outsider looking in, right? And I'm sitting there going, all right, this guy worked for the government. He has relations with an operative. His family member, his wife's sister or whatever, is a private duty nurse for a known gangster. He does some work for them. He's now in the unions in New York. He's also handling explosives as an inspector for the city of New York and promoted the GOMO. I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm just going to call it as I see it because I'm from Chicago. And so I'm just going to say you're connected. That you might not know it, but someone, I would just looking, and I'm not, and Scott, I know you're a member of law enforcement, but from what you're telling me and exactly the fact that, now you got Gotti gets a phone call that says, hey, look, take care of this guy. I'm just saying that, this reads more of a mob kind of connection than it does of an alien connection.
But it's not, though. You see, the whole point is that the only reason that I had any connection with the unions and the mob was because of my work with the government, and then because the work that I did with the interlocking paving stone and the asphalt plank.
Oh, I'm not doubting you. It's just that you got to understand a person who's listening to this saying, yeah, this guy's connected. Of course he's connected.
No.
You are connected. You even said you're connected, but you're not connected in the way that we're thinking. Godfather, Goodfellas connection. You're connected in a sense that you got higher beings who are directing and orchestrating your life. And they,
So here's what I learned and I get shown and told of all the past visits and things that I thought I couldn't get out of my mind. When you're traveling somewhere and at 3:00 in the morning and all of a sudden it's a different time and you're hundreds of miles from where you thought you last remembered seeing this great big red orb, things like that. You can never forget that. Oh. So after I was shown about being visited all my life, and here's what happened to me this was right after the day after Christmas of 2014. I'm with my oldest son, who's co-founder of Pledge Music, in charge of global campaigns. They have offices all over the world. You can look them up on the web, Pledge Music. And his family, my grandchildren, and my granddaughter. My grandson wasn't born then. My granddaughter is 3 years old, and she said, Pepper, can you bring me for a walk before I go to bed? Now, she's never done that before and never done that since. So I said, sure. So we get dressed about 7:00 and we walk out the driveway. It's pitch dark, clear night. I look up and I said, Eva, look up. And she looks up and there's this beautiful red orb. She goes, oh, I see it, Pepper. It's beautiful. Next thing I know, we're both up on the ship. But I can see my body walking and we're walking through the neighborhood. I'm thinking, what's going on here? So, I don't know exactly what they did then or anything, whether it was just to reassure me and show me. But then when our bodies got back to the driveway, next thing I know, boom, we're back in our bodies. Back
in your bodies.
Well, but the red orb's parked over the house.
Yeah.
So my granddaughter takes off and she runs in and she tells her parents, and my son got upset because even though he knew I was on details because he heard it from a major, about a craft coming down, and he knows that they're real. He just didn't want this to be happening, there. So, I said, okay, fine. I said, I didn't say a word to her. She's telling you what she wants to tell you or what she. So in any event, get this. So we stay up, just my son and I stay up late and watch a hockey game, and then I go to bed. And just as I'm getting into bed, boom. They showed me something that I could not ever get out of my mind for when I was 10 years old, staying at my grandparents' house, my father's parents' house. And because my grandmother had worked shift work and she had to leave to go to her shift, and my uncle, who I was going into our family camp with the next day, had to cover for an hour, I was all alone, and I was afraid. I was 10 years old in this big old house, and I saw something, and I just wrote it off as a dream, a nightmare. Yeah. But before I went to bed that night in 2014 after Christmas at my son's house, they showed me the same exact thing. The same exact thing. And then they told me what it meant. And it makes so much sense because of all the past visits, something my father had told me, the fact that I'm Rh negative, green eyes, and here's another thing. I have now interviewed over 16 other people who have green eyes, Rh negative, and we all have another thing in common, and that is a third nipple. Now, what are the chances of 16 people who have stories of being visited share all these characteristics?
So, okay. So you have obviously that's been documented, right? That you have
that's all well documented. Okay. So in any event, they explained to me what it meant. And basically what it meant was you have been visited all your life. You have been protected all your life. How do you think you've made it this long? Yeah. It's a family thing. It's a genetic thing. Okay. So basically what they were reassuring me were my children and grandchildren, because you see what happened to me the night after the first visit they allowed me to remember in September. They showed me something that was absolutely terrifying for a father of 4 children and 2 grandchildren who I love dearly. They showed me the end of the world. Oh. Now they did this in the manner of what I would understand from my Catholic upbringing. And that is nothing, what I witnessed was nothing from horizon to horizon in the night sky, but angels coming to earth. I mean, uncountable numbers. And they showed me souls returning to earth and souls being put in the ground. Now, being brought up Catholic, that only meant one thing. The end of the world, right? When Christ comes again, he's going to judge the living and the dead. Well, how can he judge the dead if they're not returned to souls to earth? So that terrified me. But the whole thing, I mean, when you see, every night you're visited, I have met over 100 different alien species. None of them have made me feel uncomfortable or afraid or anything. Mm-hmm. They have a sense of humor that is absolutely fascinating. Their brilliance they're so much more advanced than we are, it's just unbelievable. The things that they've shown me, like after I figured out after the third time they folded space, I realized, after the first time they folded space, the next day I find where some guy captures on video in Tuhupaho Beach, Tahiti, this huge wave. And I said, this is not a coincidence. So I tracked the guy down. These waves were also filmed and used in the movie Point Break 2. They occurred, guess what? September 15th, 2014. 6 hours time zone difference between my time, where I lived in New York, and Tahiti time. So I told the guy, I got a hold of him, and I said, I know when you took those pictures. He goes, how do you know that? I didn't post it. I said, because I know how they were made. I said, do you ever think about how those waves occurred in a slack moon tide or fourth quarter moon when you're not supposed to go surfing because it's a waste of time?
Yeah.
And you got 50, 60 foot waves? He goes, no, I never thought about that, but you're right. So that happened. That was in September. So I knew that by folding space between the Earth and the Moon, that it had to have an effect on the water in the ocean somewhere on Earth.
Sure.
So when I started plotting all the GPS positions and everything and doing the distances and the math and figuring out, I realized that it was a 3, 4, 5 right triangle. Because if you draw that straight line from where I lived in Potsdam all the way down to Tahiti, and you look at the degree of roundness the Earth is and everything, you can see where it would hit that point exactly, southwest shore to Hupaho Beach in Tahiti. So I knew that they were folding space, creating gravity, and which had the effect of the tide somewhere on Earth. They did it in October. I found where someone videoed the same thing. They did it in November. And guess what? The wave showed up on the same exact longitude, but it moved from Tuhupaho Beach in September to Oahu Beach in Hawaii in November. And the reason for that is because we're approaching our winter equinox. Therefore, the Earth is tilting away, the northern hemisphere is tilting away from the sun. And when you plot the position of the moon at these times and dates, you can see where it moved, I think, 33 degrees north. And that, if you plot that with the movement of the sun between the equator, the Tropic of Cancer, the Tropic of Capricorn, how it moves during those time periods, it works out perfectly day to day by degree. So I knew that all these things were connected, and I was getting the information to prove it. And then I realized that the guys from the LIGO lab announced, "Hey, guess what? We discovered gravity in September of 2015." And I thought for a minute, and I said, "Boy, that's a bunch of bullshit," because the LIGO labs were in use in 2014 and before that. And I said, if they folded space in our area, and then when you draw the straight line from where I was to Tuhupaho Beach in Tahiti, hey, goes right over the LIGO lab in Louisiana. So I knew that they discovered gravity on September because it was too strong of a gravity. If it has that of effect to create a 60-foot wave in the Pacific Ocean, then it had to be detected by the LIGO lab. Yeah. So then, and then of course the other lab is up in Hanford, Washington. So because of the position of the moon, when you plot it astronomically, and you do all the math, it still works out 3, 4, 5, both the facilities. So you know what I did? I picked up the phone, I chased these guys down, and I told them, I said, "Hey, what'd you lie for?"
Yeah. So basically you've proven that the lunar, which is what accounts for most Most heat waves. Now they do have you do have weather events, low pressure systems and stuff that do that as well.
Yeah, and earthquakes. But the thing is, I researched all the data. It took me 2 years to put it together. I researched all the data on all the weather and all the earthquakes, and nothing was there to support the creation of those waves except the folding space.
Yeah.
And it makes so much sense. I mean, it's all logical. So,
hey, Scott, I want to take you back though, to the ship, because we never really talked about this. So you've been brought up into the ship, and I have a picture of the ship that you provided up on Facebook, images, of it into the sky. And as expected, it would be blurry and stuff because, that's just the nature of the cameras these days. Now, when you go inside, can you describe the inside of the ship?
No, all I know is that, and I wrote this up for someone recently. All I know is that I was, in a room. Everything seemed so, at different times. I can describe you some of the other rooms, but, other times. But on this time when they took me up, and by the way, I used a Blu-ray, AVC HD video camera that also does still shots in the night shot mode. And that's why those pictures look the way they do, is because I was using a night shot mode. I was like on a table, and I knew that there was something holding my head perfectly in the right position, and the rest of my body, I couldn't move. I mean, I was just like a frozen stiff. And I can remember seeing the needle, but I never felt anything. You know what I mean? And that's when they injected the monatomic gold. Now, a couple weeks later, the time I was brought up on the ship where they taught me about taking you spiritually, your spiritual body up.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard before about this silver curtain with every color imaginable in it, just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
That they used. Okay. Well, first they brought me up and I met with this individual. I'm not going to name him, but it will come out eventually. And it was a discussion about meeting other aliens, And I said, what'd they send you for? Because I am, I'm not afraid to meet him. Because really? I said, no. I said, I'm not afraid of it. So he said, okay. And, after he did that, he got up and he took that curtain. He pulled that beautiful silver multicolored curtain across, between where I was and where he was, be sitting behind like a desk in a console. And he pulled that around. And then I can remember, as they've done several times, when they send you back like this, you're looking at them and you see this white light, this incredible white light. And that, like I can remember seeing him, and then he did the curtain, and then all of a sudden I feel myself going back in that white light, and it, it's like the white gets engulfs you.
Sure.
And, now, I remember I was visited St. Patrick's Day, okay, where they showed me again. Yeah. And then in August, we're at Clarkson University at Townhouses for the summer, and my wife is co-authoring a book on stem cells and regenerative medicine. And I wake up 2:30 in the morning, middle of August, screaming. And everybody, my son and his fiance and my wife, what's the matter? What's the matter?
Yeah.
I said, I had the worst nightmare. They said, really? And,
with everything you've been through, you're having nightmares?
Yeah, well, but it wasn't a nightmare, because as I found out, it actually ended up saving my life. But they said, what was it? I said, well, I was in this room with these guys that looked like Wookiees. And I said, they were laughing at me, but they had this silver probe in their hand. And I said, I think they anally raped me.
Oh, no.
And yeah, But guess what? 3 days later, I needed surgery and it saved my life.
Wow.
So basically, it was a medical procedure.
Medical procedure. Wow, we're actually Scott. We're coming up on another hard break. I will tell you that after this break, we can go the rest of the show without taking any and stuff. And I do still want to revisit because I have a couple questions about, obviously you said you weren't the ship, but I have some questions around that. I also have questions about what did these aliens look like, these beings, these higher beings that you were talking to. I know you said that you saw Wookiees who did a medical procedure on you, but I'd like to hear some descriptions on some of the other ones. But so when we return, we're talking with our very good friend and guest, Scott V, Mr. V, as I'm going to call him for the rest of the night, about his contactee and fascinating story.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. It is the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. Join me here live every week at night from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or on the web at www.themidnightocean.com. You can follow us on social media. Just type in The Midnight Ocean. That's all you got to do. We are getting some reports that YouTube is buffering. Guys, I will tell you that it's cool to see, the pictures and the graphics that we put together for you guys for the YouTube channel live. But if you want to listen to the show uninterrupted and not be so frustrated, you can always download our application, especially if you're listening to us on a smartphone. There's YouTube or Android there, and then you can listen to us live on Spreaker. And we get a lot of great reports from Spreaker as far as audio quality. That's the one I would go with. I mean, I like the fact that we put these videos up, and it's pretty cool. But the audio quality on Spreaker is just so much better and stuff, because they're geared for that. It's kind of like YouTube is geared for video and Spreaker is geared for audio. So if you are having buffering issues on YouTube, get out there and listen to us on Spreaker. And of course, if you are listening to us on Facebook and get disconnected, you can always join us at either one of those. Take your pick. So we are cruising into the night with our very special guest, Mr. V, as he's telling his experiences. And I've got some questions for him. If you guys have some questions, please feel free to put them in the chat room, and we'll try to ask Mr. V those questions. But my first question is, I'm not doubting you, Mr. V, but I have to say, if these aliens, and it seems like they're benign. I mean, they're friendly. They're not mean or evil. They don't have any malice towards you, correct?
They don't have any malice towards anyone. That's not what it is. There's BS about the evil aliens and this and that and that. I'm not saying there's not some that don't have our best interest in the heart, but it's all about spiritual development, about the closer you evolve spiritually and technically, the closer you get to the divinity, basically.
Well, I guess my question is this, though, is that every time you have gone to the ship, I've heard you talk about going to the ship, you're strapped down. I mean, to me, if I was friendly and I was your friend and we were friends and I invite you over to my house, I'm not going to strap you down to the table. I'm going to let you walk freely in the ship. I'm going to let you experience what you're experiencing.
Okay, only twice that I know that all the other times I was not strapped down. There only twice. The time they did the medical procedure and the time they injected the monatomic gold are the only two times that I can remember not being mobile. Okay,
so then going back to my previous question, what did the inside of the ship look like?
Well, it basically the time where they brought me up spiritually, and I met with this person in the entertainment industry that is famous about ancient aliens with the crazy hair there. That was silver, and there was like I said, that he was behind this council, and there were these. I can only assume like what we would call a computer screen or whatever, and everything was silver in color or chrome in color, and then the curtain. The other times, all I can remember is seeing this almost like this silver white fog. Everything was kind of like
a haze.
A haze or a blur.
Okay.
Except when I got to see their faces up close and everything, but the expanse of everything was kind of like blurred. Whatever they do it for whatever reasons they have to.
Yeah.
Now, Now, what I want to explain to you about how everything is connected like this. The ones that I am experiencing, the 2017s, okay, they're the ones who give gifts to humanity for cultural, technical, spiritual, scientific evolution of humanity. And there's a reason for it, and it has to do with the timeline here. Because we're just about ready to for full disclosure, and it's not the choice of our government, it's the choice of the aliens. And now, remember the connection about the Rembrandt's being and some other master painters? Well, guess what? I find out that they also visited the master painters. There's not that many master painters. And the reason they're masters, because they too are enlightened. Like my chemist friend who passed away this summer was one of the best chemists in the world. He was an enlightened. He was visited. He was injected with monatomic gold. Musicians, I'll give you an example. And I've talked to them, okay, because of my son's relationship in the industry. Coldplay makes no secret about a visit they had with an encounter they had with a UFO. It's on one of Chris's pianos, and they've done several songs. But after they visit, they produced an album in 2005 called X and Y. All you have to do is look at the album cover to know that there's something very different and strange about it. Okay? And this is what the aliens taught me. And I had picked it up, but didn't realize it until they started letting me remember and putting things together. They did a song on the X and Y album called Talk, T-A-L-K. I'm going to read you some of the lyrics. And if you can't get what this is, I don't know. Here's a go. It goes, oh brother, I can't get through. I've been trying hard to reach you because I don't know what to do. Oh brother, I can't believe it's true. I'm so scared about the future and I want to talk to you. Oh, I want to talk to you. Now that's an SOS, which was broadcast in April of 2005 over TV and radio, which means it went out into the vast universe. And guess who got it? Why do you think there's so many sightings of UFOs in the last couple of years? Why do you think there's this huge fleet of UFOs parked behind the dark side of the moon? It's because they're here for a reason. They've come to do something again. And I found it in history. I found it in Velikovsky's work, in his book, Worlds in Collision, where he describes ancient oral and written history. And at various times in humanity, which is much, much older than the bullshit they teach you at school, there has been stories, and there has both written and oral, about the sky coming close to Earth. Now, Velikovsky tied this in with what's coming up, and that is the passing of our binary star through the inner solar system and the planets and moons that travel with it, which has had effect on Earth's structure, period. Why do you think we have tectonic plates? Now, everything that they've taught me, I started reading these books in the early 90s, from Graham Hancock to Cramos, all Graham Hancock's work, Cramos' Forbidden Archaeology, another book called The Night the Sky Fell. Every book in history, it's been explained about, like when the sky fell, when the stars fell. Well, the stars didn't fall. The Earth had what we call rapid Earth crust displacement. That is the only way you can explain why there are seahorses in Lake Titicaca at 10,700 feet in elevation. It's the only place in the world they're found like that.
Oh.
Lake Baikal in Russia. Landlocked lake. Yet, it houses seals and jellyfish. Now, I know they didn't walk across the Gobi Desert to get there. And then you've got all those woolly mammoths that are buried.
Yeah. That were fast frozen and still had food and the food and when they open up the stomachs, they're finding, green tropical.
Yeah. Buttercups, things like that.
Inside their gut.
Right.
Yep.
You've got whale bones in the mountains in Quebec and the Adirondacks. And I mean, all over the world, they found these oddities, but because it didn't fit in with the storyline and the generally accepted BS, anybody who tried to push the point is, this is what I found. This doesn't make any sense. Well, you either fall in line or you're all through. Or
you're a kook. Well, no,
that's what they've done.
Yeah.
And it's all about control. It's just like there's no such thing as a devil. There's no such thing as hell. Jesus Christ was just an enlightened human being. We're all a speck of the divinity. We're not, he wasn't, God didn't diddle Mary and create his son on earth. No, he was visited. He was injected with monatomic gold. Yeah. The ancient paintings and stories all fall in line.
Yeah, and that's what I want to kind of back up there, because one of the questions that were asked in the chat room, Scott, is the question that I'm being asked you is how did they bring religion to us to aid in our development, and how the elites or the minority use it instead to control or manipulate mankind? So we talked about Jesus being on this list of being enlightened. So how was that done, and what was the goal of all of that?
Well, again, he was just one of the religious, and there, if you Google a list of enlightened people, you'll see the other religious people around the world, different types of religions, who had the same type of philosophy about things. The thing is that what man hijacks everything. Okay, man will hijack something to make it better for himself or itself, or you know what I mean? Like the Catholic Church was all about control.
Yes.
Okay, that's all about control people. Not that it started off being the wrong thing, because when you look at what Christ taught, and what these other religious leaders teach, it's about living a selfless life. In other words, not being so selfish, but thinking about other life on earth. And what they have done is, of course, who was it? Constantine, the Roman emperor who had the Council of Trent or whatever. The
Council of Trent, yeah.
Right. Okay. So that was a political move. He needed to shore up the empire.
There's a reason. There's a reason why, and look, I'm a recovering Catholic, and I'm gonna get in trouble for saying that, and my family's gonna get mad at me, but I say it all the time. There is a reason why they call it the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Empire was on steep decline, and then what they did, my feelings is they just, with Constantine, they took the Roman Empire and morphed it into the Roman Catholic Church.
They hijacked religion.
Yeah.
Okay. And look what they turned it into. Look at the trouble they've been in with molesting children, the wealth that they've accumulated. You would not believe what is in the vault.
I do know what's in the vaults, because I've had people on the show tell me what's in the vaults. And, and I have Leo Ogami on, who is the closest thing to Illuminatus that you're going to ever be able to talk to. And he's been on the show, and, flat out, he said the reason, what's going on is you have the infiltration of the Jesuits in the Roman Catholic Church into the Masonic lodges all over Europe, and that is what's leading to the to the Illuminati basically getting a bad rap, because the Illuminati originally, you got to go back and listen to the show that I did with him and hear it from his words. But yeah, he says it's a daily battle in his lodge. He is the Grand Master of the lodge there in Rome, and he said it is a daily battle that he has to carry on in order to purge the Jesuits and the Christians and the Catholics from the lodge. And so, I mean, yeah, I get it. I'm with you.
So religion was a gift because with religion comes the moral part of it, the humanity moral part of it, but it got hijacked, and look what happened to it. So, and then they rewrite the books and they tell the story this way. I mean, nothing makes any sense. There's a lot of truth in the Bible. There's no question about that. But you have to be careful how you read it and what you interpret and believe, because, how does someone know what he said 400 years later? I put more stock into Dolores Cannon's works, because I have had past life regression therapy, and I have learned, you couldn't make up this stuff. You just couldn't make, why do I have a lot of Jewish friends? Why do I have this connection with the Inuits? Why did I spend a couple weeks with the Hopis? All these things. Well, it's all part of your past lives. And when they let you, or when you go into that past life regression therapy, it all comes out, but you don't even realize it's coming out. It's all recorded, and then they tell you everything and give you a copy of your recording. You're
a New Yorker. Here's one for you. I spent a year with the Lubavitch at 770 in the Bronx. As I am a Goyim, and I spent a year with the Lubavitch studying that with open arms. It wasn't like they welcomed me. I have pictures of me and wearing tzitzits and a black hat. And I have pictures of me on the Bima with the Rebbe, before, he passed. And I, have pictures of me at his grave. And, I was welcomed with open arms by the Lubavitch. And so how does that go? How does that work out for you?
Let me tell you, there's a lot of beautiful, great people who are really good in religious organizations. But the structure of religion got hijacked for control of people, for control of thought, control of teaching, and control of money. I mean, let's face it, it's, the Catholic Church is nothing but their own type of mafia.
Well,
the amount of money that they collect, and how they try to make you feel guilty into giving to them, but all the churches are the same way. Look at these wacko ministers.
I'm with you.
Got millions and millions of dollars tied up in houses and jets and everything like that. I mean, what the hell is the matter with people?
I'm with you, and that's probably a great topic for another night. And I kind of want to, because we're running out of time, and I want to make sure we cover all of our bases here with this thing. Okay. So let's go back. So you were able to walk freely, and you did do the descriptions and stuff. Now let's talk about, you did say that you obviously had the nightmare with the Wookiee looking individuals. What were some of the other I don't want to say creatures. I want to say I don't want to call them creatures. I think that's disingenuous. How were these other beings, these other humanoids? What features stood out? Did they have the classic big eyes, like the Greys, or were they more humanoid, more Nordic looking?
I've seen very few, like a Greys looking. They're all humanoid looking, but their appendages may not be like our arms and legs exactly, the way that we are put together, and the lengths and the ratios and everything, and the number of phalanges. And the facial features, eyes, everything that I've met, eyes, things that could be considered ears, nose, mouth, but mainly, the facial shape and features, I've only met, I think, 2 or 3 that look exactly like us. All the rest of them look anywhere from doggish to cattish to insectoid to, it's just such a broad gamut. But what impressed me the most is that every time, the times that I've met them, none of it ever bothered me. In other words, just because they look that way, it was not what they look like, it's how you felt. And here's the amazing thing, is that being brought up by a first sergeant, and probably a lot of guys too, my age, your father, he used to have a saying, you want something to cry about? I'll give you something to cry about.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah. Don't make me, look, I grew up in the military as well, and it's like, don't make me pull this car over. Yeah, that was the classic one too, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So I got a funny story about that pull over the car thing. I just, the feeling of love is so overwhelming that I actually have teared up. Involuntarily, just teared up because the feeling of love and acceptance and happiness is nothing like I've ever felt in my life. It's just absolutely amazing. I look forward to every time that they visit or take me because the feeling is just incredible. Now here's another thing. Not only can I see auras, but I can see angels. I can see angels just like I can see people. Now, that's crazy, but it's true. And I've noticed that cats and dogs can also see them. Because just the other day, again, I'm sitting in my chair reading, and this cat that adopted us this summer is sitting there, and he looks at me, and he looks over at the wall, and I look over at the wall, and there's an angel. And he looks at me, he looks over there like that, and then he follows it through the house. I mean, I can see what he's seeing. And it has to do with being injected with monatomic gold, and it has to do with the fact that animals, as we know, have a different sense, and they see in different spectrums.
Correct.
So basically, I can see interdimensionally. Okay, I have, elves, leprechauns. I've seen them; they exist. Fairies. What I've seen about fairies, absolutely amazing. Blow your mind. I mean, just absolutely fascinating. And the thing about angels, the angels thing is just absolutely amazing. And every time there is an angel that comes to me that glows a pinkish red in a chest, when they do that, I immediately know what past family member it is. Now, it's not easy it's true. I don't have to make up these stories. I don't, like my wife witnessed for 40 minutes that ship.
Yeah.
Because after they put me back, I went and got her up, tried to get the kids up. They couldn't wake up. I even shoved them off the bed. They still couldn't wake up. I said, the hell with you guys. My wife went out with me, and for 40 minutes, she witnessed the ship. She's witnessed them fold space the other times too, because I'm lucky that I have someone that close to me that I can share this with. And she just finished her, I don't know, 3rd or 4th degree. She's like me, that's too many degrees, in biochemistry, pre-med, and biology, and chemistry. She went back to school. We both have law degrees. She went back to school and the last 4 years. And so we have a lot of friends at school, even some professors, a couple of them that I've worked with trying to figure this out about the all this astronomical stuff. I worked with some astrophysics and some physics professors. And no one doubts us. No one says it's not, you're crazy or anything like that. And there's so many more people, especially a lot of these college students that are waking up.
Yeah. Hey, Scott, I lied. Yeah. I'm actually just getting a feed in where we do have to take a break.
Okay.
Wow. So that's unusual. I have to check into that, why this one came through. We're talking with our very special guest, Scott V, Mr. V, as I will call him. And we're getting into his experiences, and we're just kind of letting to see where the conversation leads us. If you have more questions for Scott, get them out there on the web at YouTube and the chat room. We'd love to hear from you, and I'll be glad to ask them for you.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean radio show and podcast. I can see the dock ahead of us as we cruise on in to the evening. Wow, what a great show. What an entertaining show. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversations with Mr. V, and we're going to get back to him here in a few minutes. But we got to take care of a little bit of housekeeping. If you're listening to us on Facebook, I see that the feed's still active. Wow, we might make it all the way through the night. I doubt it, but we might. Of course, you can join us on Twitter, and if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you very much. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I hope you guys have plans for the weekend. I know I do. I don't know what they are yet. Let me rephrase that. I am sure that Miss Sandy has plans for me for the weekend. And she will let me know in due time what those may be. So, but wow. I just want to tell people, too, if you have not done so yet, get out the Spreaker, sign up, and follow us on the Spreaker. There's some really good shows out there, by the way. Spreaker's a great service. I really like them. And if you're a podcaster, you need to really look into them. They're pretty much the best that I've been able to find as far as quality goes and cost. So there you go. I threw you guys a little bone there. Gave you a little inside baseball on how we do things around here at the Midnight Ocean. Wow, what a show. And this is the last segment, so I don't want to waste any more time on buffoonery or anything like that. We want to get back to Mr. V and make sure that we get everything in that we can here in the last 30-minute segment that we got going on. So, Mr. V, one of the things, going down the list here in the chat room, and you kind of alluded to this before. I mean, these are benevolent, not malevolent, but benevolent. They have our best interests out for us, and they've taken care of us, right? There's been earthquakes, volcanoes, things of that nature that they've been able to subdue and to keep from becoming a catastrophic event.
Yes, and not only that, believe it or not, one night I was taken up on a mission, and where that asteroid or meteorite, whatever, I don't know what size it was. All I know is that I was grabbed really quick during the night, and it came from the northwest, traveled over Ontario, over our area. It was captured on camera on a police cruiser in Plattsburgh, New York, and it ended up exploding in the air, being destroyed in the air over Maine. Now, when they brought me back, this was a real quick trip, and I've heard other people say when it happened to them the same exact things. I was so sore and I was so sick that my wife had to help me to the bathroom. What they're doing, and if people can't see it on a lot of these videos that are on Facebook, these pieces of space debris, because of our binary star and its planets in the area, coming into our atmosphere, they're actually destroying them so they do not cause, just like they destroyed the one in Russia, so they do not cause massive damage on Earth, just like the earthquakes, just like the volcanoes. How many times have you seen videos of UFOs coming out of volcanoes or flying over volcanoes during? Whoa. Okay, and the same thing with like, I can't believe when I've explained this to some people, they say, I said, well, what do you think that thing is flying in the opposite direction out of the meteor? Oh, that's just a piece of the meteor. I think this one through, pal. I said, it's coming in one direction with a lot of speed and mass. Yet a piece breaks off and decides it's going to go in reverse. I don't think so. I said, that's a craft. And that's why it didn't cause damage on Earth, because they either deflected it out or they actually destroyed it in our upper atmosphere.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no question about that.
Well, what are your friends telling? What about Planet X, Nibiru? Are they going to help us out there, or are we just kind of?
Okay, now back to Velikovsky. These tribes described in their oral and written history throughout the world at different times about the sky coming close to Earth, and that's why they built totem poles or put up large trees, cut them down and made these poles around their dwellings because they were afraid that the sky was going to come close to Earth again and crush them. Okay? Velikovsky said, well, that was because of the volcanic, because it always happened during these cataclysmic times. Well, that's because there was so much volcanic activity that it looked like the sky was closer to Earth. Well, I beg your pardon, but no, it doesn't look like that. Because number one, to describe the sky and the stars falling and the sky being close to Earth, you'll have to see that they were folding space at that time. And when they fold space, what are they doing? They're moving our planet out of extreme danger. Now, I told you that the first thing they showed me was the end of the world, which really bothered me, and they knew it really bothered me. So in November, when they folded space on the 14th of November at 3 o'clock in the morning, they flew from their ship a beautiful, huge red orb right across the entire front of my vision over to the southern sky, where Orion filled the southern sky. That was the only constellation visible in the southern sky. It was huge. Now, that's when they told me, you don't think that we would enlighten people and let you come this far and be the Earth ended? Don't be so foolish. They said, we're your babysitters, your benefactors, we're benevolent, we're taking care of you. And that's what they're going to do. And everyone who's in the night sky during that time period when they fold space to move us again, will see the Star of Bethlehem, because that's what they fold space with. That's what we called it that way back in history, but it's nothing more than a spherical moon, small moon-shaped ship, round ship that looks like the Star Wars Death Star, and it folds space. And there's been pictures of it posted and taken, and that's what it is. And okay, what did NASA say? Oh, we developed the second moon? I don't think so.
Yeah, we actually have pictures of the three that you provided, John, of the three stars or the three images that are up there up on the YouTube right now, so people can take a look. That's what they're looking at.
So they're gonna basically. It's not that we're gonna, I'm sure we're gonna have some rough times, but life's not going to end on Earth, and we're not going to go back into the Stone Ages. Yeah.
I'm a firm believer, and I think the enlightened people, the people that get it, that are, people that are listening to shows like ours and others that are out there, I actually, if you're not preparing, okay, that's okay. That's your choice. If you are preparing, then good for you, and we'll see you on the other side.
Yeah.
On the other side of when we come through this and everything. One of the things that I did want to talk to, and I wanted to make sure that we did circle around, we didn't miss this whole the proton engine theory that you have, and then how they projecting outside the ship.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about that in the last few minutes that we have together tonight. Okay.
Well, our sun is a proton to proton fusion reaction. Okay. It's like implosion. It is where all our heavy elements are made. Okay. So basically, what they have is this big spherical ship, and in the center, they've got this proton to proton fusion reaction, which is, basically a fusion reactor. And after I figured out, I said to them, well, how do you get it out of the ship without imploding the ship? Because by creating this force, which creates gravity, I said, you would implode the ship. How do you get out of the ship? And that's when they showed me what the the device is like it's a long tapered pipe. Where it comes out of the ship, it's got like a bell end, and it's in the inside is hollow in the shape of a 6-pointed star, like the Star David. Gee, where'd that come from? And it's lined, the first layer I'm going from the hollow to the outer parts. The first layer is at least 6 to 8 inches of solid gold, which kind of makes sense because gold is one of the main heavy elements that are created when their supernova is created. And we line all our spacecrafts with gold foil to protect it from radiation and the harmful elements that come off the sun.
Correct.
Okay. Then there's a layer, equally thick layer of lead, which makes sense, anti-radiation. Then titanium. And then there's probably close to 2 feet of that same exact material that we make transistors and capacitors out of, that it's almost like a ceramic material.
Ceramic, yeah.
Okay. Then another layer of lead and another layer of titanium, and then the outer layer of that ceramic material. Now, when you look at the table of elements and you understand, the astrological part of everything and the radiation and the whole 9 yards, all these things would be needed to contain, direct, and protect. And that's exactly what it is. Now, they had to come and get me twice to explain this to me, because the first time they put me back, somehow my wife wakes up. She realizes that I'm gone, and when I come back, she goes, "Okay, what happened?" And I said, "I don't know what these guys were doing. They're trying to sell me some pipe." I said, "But boy, was it ever strange." And the next thing I know, boom, I'm gone again. And like I said, they got such a sense of humor because they do laugh with you.
Yeah.
And they said, "You idiot."
Yeah. We weren't trying. Yeah, we weren't trying to say. Yeah, I got
you. You asked. You figured it out. You asked. Here it is.
See, that's what I would do if I was an alien. I say that a lot of times on the show. If I was flying a spaceship, I'd be messing with people all the time.
I think they do. But I think every bit of it is good.
Yeah, no, I would do it in good humor. I wouldn't be mean. I would abduct you, and I'd wear like an alien mask, and then go boop, and then go, "No, I'm just joking. It's really just me." And
okay, now one thing I want to touch on, John, our friend John Secca, talked about was about you had Bob Fletcher on. Now, yes. Bob's got an interesting background, and he agrees with me. I mean, by being in charge of explosives, you know how to bring a building down. You better. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to go there. Hold on. I don't want to go there. That is I'm going to bring you back on your expertise on 9/11. That is not, I want to make sure we stay as advertised on this show. And I do know that you are an expert in that. But I don't mean to cut you off because we only have about 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we get everything in regarding the UFO stuff.
But don't forget, it's related. That incident is actually related.
Is it? Okay. Well,
by binary star.
But let's do this though. Let me because John did ask a question, and it goes in hand. When apparently there's supposed to be alignment between astronomical an event, a calendar event, and also a biblical event next year. And you were told, and I think it's important that we get this out there because this is at the time that when we see those events line up, that's when we know, hey, you're in it now. We're all in it.
Right. And Gil Broussard describes that he did a tremendous job in researching. I agree with about 99% of what Gil has come up with, but I do know that the doom and gloom about everything is going to be prevented by them folding space and moving us. Now, here's how they proved about this. if you check the weather data after November 14th of 2014, you will find that according to the weather history records, the coldest and snowiest winter on record occurred in the Northern Hemisphere.
Correct.
The reason why? Well, you move our planet out of orbit south towards Orion to prove a point, is going to have an effect on our weather.
And you're correct. I mean, that did happen. And, the whole, when you get into the Mandela effect, we have been moved. So it, it just, all the historical data, all the ancient history, the archaeological, the geological, the whole 9 yards. Because I'm multi-degreed in different areas, and so I've covered all these areas. And so when you look at something and you say, this does not make any sense, what I was taught, what's in this book doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work this way. So then you finally come to the point about rapid Earth crust displacement, which is caused by the effects of this rogue planet or the binary star and its planets that come through the thing. And depending how close they get to Earth, has the effect. It's had an effect on the other planets. And I don't think anybody of serious science and research with Planet X or Nibiru said that it's not actually the planet that affects it. Well, it does affect. But what it is it's we get caught in its tail. And so we're going to get, huge meteorite and asteroid from the tail side of it. And then, of course, as it whips around us, it will, cause gravitational issues and I'm with you, man. So,
but another thing is a plasma discharge strike.
Huge amounts of lightning that we've never seen, upper atmosphere lightning that we've never witnessed. And that goes to Walt Thornhill's article about the electric universe.
Yes, I agree about that. And now they think that's how the Grand Canyon was created, is because of a plasma strike. And then there's that missing part of the mountain in the Sahara that I think it's in northern Africa area, which they know it was caused from a plasma strike. And Velikovsky really covers it well in his works about tying in these ancient stories, both written and oral, and how they are described. And it's just like, my wife describes it, it's just like, the old thing about the telephone rumor thing. It starts off at one thing, and by the time it goes, well, that's what's happened with our history.
Yeah, we used to do that at Boy Scout. Yeah, I mean, we did that at Boy Scout camp, where you tell it, you start the story, and then by the time it gets back to you, it's changed in one form or fashion and stuff. So, Scott, I want to give you the heads up. We got about 8 more minutes of the show. So this is the time in which I say, if there's any websites that you have that you want people to go to, please mention them here and make sure that I get them either through John, so we can get them posted on your page as well. If there is anything, this is kind of your last few minutes. So if there's anything you want to talk about, it's wide open, and I'll just sit back and listen like a listener, like a good listener.
Well, the one thing I want to get across is this thing about no fear. Regardless of what happens, you have nothing to fear, because A, life does not end on this planet. Okay. And B, I think that we're ready. For them to be only known as the 2017-22, 2017 is next year. You talked about the astrological alignment, and that is September 23rd, 2017, where in Jerusalem at a certain time, I think midnight or whatever, there's going to be Cassiopeia laying on her side with the sun on its shoulder and left shoulder, and Jupiter coming out of the womb, out of her stomach, and the moon at her feet. And that's the only time when you run the programs, and I've run it more than once, different astronomical programs. It's the only time it's ever occurred. And how did someone know about this is what it was going to look like when this happened again? So I stand firm with Gil Brizard on his research on that. But the only thing is that I don't think that it's going to be as bad as some people are making it out to be. I think we're ready to join the galactic community. We're ready to meet our galactic family, and life is going to change on Earth, because I have always felt uncomfortable with life on Earth, the way that things are being run. We know that there's 0-point energy. We know that there's aliens. We know that there's UFOs. We know they've been visiting on Earth longer than we were created. We know that we were genetically engineered. I mean, there's just too much scientific information. We have reached the point scientifically where we understand these things. It's like I understood that they were folding space. There wasn't the sky wasn't falling or whatever. I mean, so, we've reached this point in humanity where we deserve to have life the way it is supposed to be. Because when you look at the greed that's out there, and you look at the starvation and the homelessness and the killing of animals and things like that. I mean, what kind of life is that? Humanity has gotten out of control. Some people say God's going to push the reset button. But I would like to say maybe it's a wake-up call. We have to realize about our spiritual nature, about the fact that life doesn't end here on this planet, that we belong to different soul groups, and that everything encountered in our life happens for a reason. Yes, we do have free choice. This planet is like one giant university for souls. I happen to be one of the first waivers. My wife is a second waiver, and my daughter is a third waiver. And that comes from Dolores Cannon's work as 3 Waves of Volunteers in the New Earth. Now, she claims in her work that a new Earth has now already formed, and that there will be a transition between mindset and people between the old Earth and the new Earth. Now, whether that is true or not, I can't say, but I do know that everything else that I've read about her work, I've been able to verify. So I don't have any doubts of that happening, but it's just so amazing. And one of the things that she brought up earlier in that one of her last works was in this book was the fact that that's why there are so many alien crafts here, is because they have come to do something that's never been done and to see something that's never happened before in the universe. And that is the new Earth being formed out of, it's like a duplicate. It's like in a different dimension. And that people who are selfless in their lives and who have finally gotten it about life are going to occupy the new Earth. Now, whether that is what they describe as the rapture, and there's so much truth in so many programs and specials and movies. We watched the Inferno tonight with Tom Hanks. And in that movie, there are so many things that are basically brought up and talked about, a pandemic created by a crazy person who saw that if humanity didn't get knocked down, then humanity would end. I mean, there's so many movies recently that are telling these messages. Another point I want to bring out is that if anyone doubts any of this thing, all they have to do is pick up or go to the web and search the lyrics for all the songs from Coldplay off their X and Y album.
Yes. Yep.
Read those lyrics. And everything that you need to know are in those songs.
There's in those songs. Well, there you go, Scott. That's the music. That's our cue. So, man, I appreciate it for you coming on the air and for the first time sharing your experiences. And we will definitely have you back, my friend. We will definitely. You will be a fixture within the Midnight Ocean and everything.
I appreciate you having me, and I want you to know, though I have been debriefed by just about every agency, and I tell them that you guys have got it wrong.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely. I think they're thinking of it from a man's point of view, or a human point of view, and they're not thinking of it the way they should. So, all right, my friend, we have to.
You know how you can tell when they know what you're talking about is when they don't react. Yeah. They don't come back with anything.
That's right. It's what they don't. I'm a firm believer. I've always said that and everything, but we definitely have to say goodnight, my friend. And I'll be in touch, and John will be in touch, and we'll get together and get you back on the show. There you go, Mr. Scott V, Mr. V joining us. Wow. We're going to take a quick break. I got some words. I know that we got to start adhering to the schedule. And I know that we haven't been doing it. We've been flying a little fast and loose around here, but we're getting ready here in December to get to schedule. It doesn't mean we're changing our format or that we're corporate controlled. It's just that we have to adhere to a clock. So that is it, my friends. And when we get back from the break, I have a few parting words for you for the weekend and everything. So we'll take a quick break. And like I said, hang in there. We'll be back. Take care.
Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean radio show and podcast. I want to thank our very special guest, Scott V, for joining us here as he talked. Man, that was interesting. I got to go back and listen to it. It was very, very interesting. And I'm sure tomorrow our chat room will be lit up as Scott came on and so graciously and also so bravely shared with us his experience. Like I said, this is a man who has and is currently dealing with different agencies. For him to come onto the air, and they know who he is. You know, we don't use his full name here, but they know who he is, and so he's taking a lot of risk by doing that. So my hats off to you, Scott. And we will definitely get him on the show. There's other topics that he is an expert on, and being an explosive expert, you guys can only imagine being in New York, his involvement with certain buildings. I don't want to say involvement, but with his expertise. So we're going to talk about that. What I wanted to do is talk to you guys, give you guys a heads up, give you a little bit of insight. I know that we try to avoid the topic of politics on this show, but I have to speak up. There's a few things that I'm going to say to someone. Yeah, I noticed I got to go see my doctor. I got a little weird. There's no bump there. As you guys are seeing me on YouTube and stuff. And that's kind of the way I see it in the camera. Did you not hear about that swimmer who was swimming and someone on TV, he's an Olympic swimmer, diagnosed him with cancer? Saved his life. Saved his life. He was on the Olympics and someone saw it and said, whoa, you need to go see it. And sure enough, it was skin cancer. And it was a very aggressive form of skin cancer. But that was amazing. Just utterly amazing. So if you see, anything on me that looks like it could kill me, please let me know. And more importantly, on the green screen, sometimes I don't look behind me, but if you see like hands reaching in, and so let me know because I'm not paying attention sometimes and everything. And talk about how do you guys like our new setup with our different backdrops every night? I think that's pretty cool. That's I spent some time learning how to use the software that we use for the show. So that was really, really cool. Now, going back to the matter at hand before we go off into the weekend, I'm going to break ranks here because there's some things that I find troubling, and I need to make you guys aware of what I see. And, I had a knack when I did Patriot FB for calling some things out. And I think you guys need to be made aware of this. Today, obviously, the FBI reopened the investigation in the emails. Now, let me tell you, that does not happen very often. The fact that they closed the investigation and now that they opened it. Now, I don't know if it's because of the hubris of the Clintons finally just PO'd someone off. Typically, to get those reopened, there has to be a significant development. In other words, if there were C documents or, we talk about this, if there was more of them, that's not enough because that's already been disclosed. It has to be something that has not been disclosed. Think of it kind of like a double jeopardy. She's already been, tried on the notes that the FBI has seen. So apparently there's something else that has come out that the FBI hasn't seen. And now you got Huma in hiding. she is in hiding as well. The problem is this, too, for the Hillary camp. And I don't know if this was played by Comey. I don't know. The thing is that when they grant immunity on a case, it is on that case specifically. When they close a case, and like I said, I don't know if this was a play. So basically, you can't formulate a criminal case against anybody because everybody's been given immunity, right? But that case has been closed. It's a new case. So I don't know, in the brilliance of Comey, if this was the play all along. But it's a brilliant move. Because what he did is he kind of Bill Cosby'd these people. And let me tell you what happened with Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby went out there and he had an agreement as it relates to a particular case. So he had this agreement, and then like a knucklehead, he thought he was free to clear from prosecution. Well, they reopened another case, and that case, they said, no, your agreement to testify in case A has nothing to do with case B, so we can prosecute you in case B. And all of these people, all of these individuals who have basically incriminated themselves after taking the fifth, because you don't take the fifth and don't, follow through with it. I mean, these guys had a free pass and they didn't do it. So now it's like, oh, you got something to hide. You want to play games with us? Now, I don't know in the political, I know a lot of people out there don't like Comey and don't like, he's a smarter man than you think, than you really do. And this is a guy I think will burn Hillary Clinton and then retire. He don't care about it. He's got the money in the bank. He'll be looking over his shoulder the rest of his life. But, that's what happens. So I think it's well played. I think you're seeing that. I think Comey's playing chess with these people while they're playing checkers. And in their hubris, he got them. I think that's what's going to happen. Now, the concerning part is this, and we should all be concerned. The party, if it does go into an issue of they now have her on a prosecutorial issue, the president, along with Congress, can issue a new election date, because you have, and this is the argument they're going to make. And I think this is part of their argument all along, was to get the early vote, to get it to a certain number in which they can then go back to the Supreme Court and say, we need to delay the election. And they have the right to do that under Congress. The President of the United States can do it with Congress approval, but this will be a court issue. So they'll say, we're going to suspend the election of the United States until we get another candidate in there, because the candidate that we have is being indicted. She's under criminal FBI investigation. That's how I think this is going to play out. The problem with this is that it is going to basically give the New World Order, Obama and his thing, time to push executive order. Now, see, I think what we need to do is we need to call your politicians and say, if that's what you want to do, if you want to extend the elections, you can't pass any laws during that time. And the president can't execute any executive orders. Now, that's what a reasonable human being would do, but I don't think you're dealing with reasonable people, especially in this current administration. But that's what I think is going on. Just watch for it. Let's see. I'm pretty, when I did Patriot FB and my other shows, I pretty much called it pretty closely. And that's my observation of what's going on. Is that Comey just threw the bait out there, and the Clintons in their hubris took it. The people that were given congressional immunity basically blew their immunity because one case doesn't have another. They obviously have something to hide. And I think it's coming, but the outfall or the outcome of that will maybe be a prosecution of Clinton. But the other outcome is I think you're going to see a suspension or an attempt to suspend the elections. And I think that is, be ready for it. Just be ready for it. Have your plan together. Do what you think you need to do. The other thing too is I want to talk about a couple of things. I had a conversation today with Sandy, and I just want to say, and it actually stemmed out of what I saw today on YouTube. I don't care what political affiliation you belong to. I really don't. That's like religion to me. You know, if you want to believe in whatever, you believe in whatever. That is not my place to tell you, and nor do I care. I can only care about what I do. It's only, if you think about it, that's the only thing that we have control over, ourselves. We don't have any control over anything else. Some of us don't even have control over ourselves. So I don't care. But I do care when I see a video of a lady, regardless of what she is doing, being attacked by men, and men standing around, well, supposed men standing around not doing anything. I will tell you that is not a country in which I want to live in. And if you guys want to buy me a plane, I seriously, if I could afford it, I would do it in a heartbeat. I would fly to Los Angeles myself, and I will sit on Donald Trump's star and protect it. And I would like to see these freaking cowards who are going to smack and push a lady around try to push this man around. You're talking 6'6", well over 400 pounds, built like a shit brick house. Try to push me around and see what happens to you. I'll smack you all the way into the next state. And that's what needs to happen, men. You men out there, when you see ladies being abused, I don't care what your beliefs are. I don't care if you can be the most racist man in the world. But when you see a lady, a woman, a daughter, a child being abused by men, you better stand up and you better step up to the plate. I will tell you, you freedom loving guys out there who are all talking about freedom and being brave and all that stuff, hey, step up. Step up. That was disgusting. The other thing too, I want to talk to you guys about, this country, we talk about abuse and we talk about the exploitation of women. Now, you guys know where I stand on porn. Talked about it many a times. We need to start demanding, when these politicians talk to you about, women, child abuse, women, sexual abuse, all this stuff, you need to tell them they're full of BS. And the reason being is I get freedom of speech, but we have laws on the books that say that you can't drink until you're 21. You can't drive until you're 16. You can't do this until you're whatever age, right? This proliferation of pornography on the internet has got to stop. And when you hear these politicians talk about, when they get up there and they do their Super Bowl ads or they do their Emmy ads about abuse and abuse against women and abuse against children and all that, and they do their glad hat, standing and all that, you need to call it out. Bull. Bull crap. And we need to start as one voice saying, we're no longer going to put up with this crap and this. And, people go, well, it's the internet. You don't have to go there. Your kids don't. No, you don't understand. It is everywhere. I don't search for pornography. So I don't have the pop-ups on my screens and everything. So I don't have those issues. But I sure in the heck do get in my email box and Gmail pills on Viagra and on Cialis and all of these things. I don't want to receive that crap in my email. And, and the thing is our children are growing up in a world in which, sexual perversion and deviation is the norm. And the people that we have elected to protect us, it's funny that the government can tell you can't build a garden in your backyard, but they can't tell some publisher or some internet site to stop showing pictures of people having, inappropriate, violent, sex with animals, for Christ's sakes. It's amazing. You want to talk about your priorities screwed up. And it's just something that I wanted to take this time with you guys and say, look, I know we have listeners. And you can agree or disagree. And if you unfriend me because of anything I just said, I don't want you as my friend anyways. I don't want you watching my show. I get it. I'm not talking about eliminating pornography. To each their own. I'm a libertarian, so to each their own. But we don't need it in our children's faces day to day. And the fact that, these images are out there, you just type it in Google. And they're right there. There is no attempt to protect anybody from that. And it's just wrong. It's just so wrong. And like I said, I'm not proposing, the best thing to do is put it all behind a credit card firewall. It's not that hard to do. I'm a technology guy. Google and all these search engines, you're all high and mighty. You will block a post about an article about a candidate that you love or you want to endorse, but you won't block that poison, that evil. Maybe everything that people say about you guys are right. You are the hand of the devil. We're already seeing it in TV. TV ratings are down tremendously. Keep it up, America. Start cutting that freaking cable. I can tell you, we did it here at the Norton household, and it's great. I love it. It's awesome. And, Sandy went through her withdrawals, but she's okay now. She's recovering. That's the way it should be. And that's just my rant. I'm done with it. So with that, I just want with that note, I just want to say thank you to our guest, Scott V, for joining us. We got, I don't know what we got lined up next week. We got to update the calendar, but who cares? Let's talk about this week. Let's talk about this weekend. I want you guys, my gift to you is love. I want you guys to go out this weekend, spend time with friends, family, people you love. If you are in the unfortunate situation, and there are some of you who are, don't have friends or family that you can spend with, spend it with your God. Spend it with your higher consciousness. Go back and listen to some of our old shows and learn how to do that. We have some great shows on how to get in touch with your higher consciousness. But the other thing too is that, if you don't have anybody to spend your weekend with that you can enjoy, maybe you need to ask yourself, what are you doing? Are you volunteering? There are various organizations that can use your help right now. If you're an animal lover, go to the kennel and see if they need help. If you're a person level, if you got a nursing home or anything where, be of service to your fellow man. One of the coolest things I love doing is sitting around talking to the older generation. The wisdom there is incredible. People that were in the war, things of that nature, they'll tell you what it was like to live in the 40s and the 30s and the 1920s. It's amazing the amount of knowledge that is there if we just ask. So like I said, be well, be kind to one another. But more importantly, as my good friend Ed Roman would say, you guys know what's coming. Be love. Talk to you guys Monday.
Like a vibration occupation.
Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.